These are the terrifying reasons you could never survive a Quetzalcoatlus. First off, they were 3 times taller than you. They stood over 16 feet tall, the height of a giraffe, with a wingspan the size of a bus 35 feet wide, being the largest animal to ever fly on Earth. But it gets more horrifying. They had 5 times better eyesight than humans, easily seeing tiny movements from miles away. And when they spotted you, they could jump up to 8 feet high, taking off from the ground alone. But when they flew, they wouldn't just flap their wings, mostly gliding instead, meaning that you wouldn't hear them coming. And even if you did have a chance to run, their bones are hollow, making them extremely fast, allowing them to reach up to 80 miles per hour when flying, impossible to outrun. But if you still somehow manage to escape under something nearby, you'd quickly figure out flying isn't the only thing they can do. Able to run on all 4s, but it gets worse once they find you, as they didn't have teeth. Instead, they would use their 8-foot-long razor-sharp beak to attack you, picking you out of your hiding spot and knocking you down with it. If you were small enough, they would just swallow you whole. But if you were larger, they couldn't eat too much at once, so they would constantly jab you and throw you around until smaller chunks of you tore off, swallowing you piece by piece. Orcas are way more disturbing than you actually thought, and are the most feared animal in the ocean. But why? First off, orcas literally harvest sharks' livers. They'll target great whites, learning to flip them upside down, activating something called tonic immobility, temporarily paralyzing them, then ripping out the shark's liver, eating it, and leaving them behind. But it gets worse, as orcas torture seals for fun, playing a game where they'll take turns going up to seals and launching them with their tails, reaching up to 50 feet high, constantly throwing the seal over and over until it finally dies and eating it. Even more horrible, when penguins are resting on icebergs, the orcas will group up and swim together to create giant waves, knocking them off the ice, letting it crawl back up and knocking it down over and over, continuing to practice this hunting tactic until they've had enough training and eating it. But the most brutal thing they do is chase down and harass mother whales with their children. Since the mother is a threat, they use a tactic to tire them out instead, following the whales for hours until they get extremely exhausted. When the mother can't defend anymore, they'll take her baby and eat it alive in front of her. Have you ever wondered why everyone hates the sunfish and often call them the world's most useless animal? What's the reason? Well, first off, they can barely even swim. Unlike most fish, they have something called a clavus, which is basically just a stub instead of a tail fin, making it extremely hard to move around, often causing them to get stuck on the surface of the water and cooking to death from the sun, or aimlessly floating around, unable to turn. But they get weirder. They're entirely defenseless, where predators will attack and take bites of them, but they'll just keep swimming, because their brains are the size of a walnut, and although they can feel pain, they can't really understand what's happening, simply doing nothing about it. Not only that, but their bodies are bony and rubbery, where predators will usually just bite and spit them out because of how bad they taste. Even fishermen don't bother catching them either, as the only thing that likes eating them is parasites. Sunfish typically have over 40 different species of parasites living on their bodies at once. Being so infested, seagulls will land on them just to eat them off. On top of that, their mouths are permanently open due to their odd bone structure, unable to fully close it, surviving by simply floating around, hoping something drifts into their mouth like plankton or jellyfish. But despite all of this, they've been around for over 45 million years, longer than humans, and outlived many other species, simply by doing nothing. Early humans were way more terrifying than you actually think. We had one of the highest levels of endurance compared to nearly every living being on the planet. But why was this scary? Well, humans used to practice something called persistence hunting, using our incredible stamina to chase down prey in a horrifying way. Knowing we couldn't catch the animal at full strength and speed, we would slowly follow it instead, where no matter how far the animal ran, they would turn around and keep seeing these hairless creatures constantly following them. Even after multiple hours of running, thinking they finally got away, the creatures would just keep appearing over and over. Humans would never get tired, forcing the animal to run until their body physically shuts down, where your only choice was to lay down from exhaustion and let them spear you to death. Did you know humpback whales save animals that aren't even the same species and willingly risk their own lives to help without any benefit? It begins when a humpback whale specifically hears an orca hunting vocalization, where they'll swim full speed towards the sound. It doesn't matter if there's 5 or 20 orcas, they go straight into the chaos for an interesting reason. Not to hunt, but make their way towards the prey and attempt to interfere. First, they'll place their bodies directly in the middle, between the prey and the orcas, using themselves as a shield to protect, taking on bites and attacks since their bodies have tons tons of blubber. Or above water, they might slap their tails down to splash and scare them away, or even use their flippers to push and shove them off the prey. But sometimes there's too many orcas to block, so they'll use other tactics instead, like flipping upside down and letting the prey sit on their stomach out of the water in safety, continuously defending the prey for multiple minutes and in rare cases hours until the orcas finally give up and swim away. It's theorized they do this because they have cross-species empathy, it's a misinterpreted instinct to defend their calves, dislike orcas, or a learned behavior from other humpbacks. But these reasons aren't proven, and to this day, scientists still have no clear answer why the humpback decides to be a hero. These are terrifying reasons you can never survive the Amazon rainforest. First off, there's no escape. When you enter the Amazon, it literally rearranges itself around you. Every footstep you make will be washed away in seconds, and vegetation is so dense that it'll instantly cover the paths you made, trapping you in an endless loop. But it gets worse. As you look for a way out, you also begin to notice the ground is alive. Every single inch of the floor within the Amazon is covered in insects and living things, where even if you try to climb a tree to escape, they're more infested. But this is the least of your problems, as the air within the forest can rot the skin off your body. It's so humid, sweat doesn't evaporate and feels like you're constantly underwater, turning your skin soft and easy to tear, often causing infections that rot to your bone. And if you tried to clean off your wounds, there's nothing but piranhas, parasites, and predators waiting for you in the water. Or if you want to cool off, be careful of the 200-degree boiling river. But worst of all, the jungle never sleeps. 70% of all animals in the Amazon are estimated to be nocturnal, meaning the chance of you being hunted in the pitch black is much higher. You'd be covered in 2 times more bugs and deafened by the sound of the jungle 24/7. And even if you finally hear the jungle fall into peace and quiet, that just means you're the target. The Pompeii eruption was way more horrifying than you thought, and was far worse than what you learned. But why? First off, you would have 0 warning signs. At the time, the city of Pompeii had no idea they were living next to one of the deadliest volcanoes in the world, thinking it was just a mountain, not realizing pressure was slowly building up inside over the past 700 years that lived there. And on a normal day in 79 AD, you would suddenly feel the ground violently shaking, followed by one of the loudest explosions in history, nearly blowing out your eardrums. Mount Vesuvius has erupted, where smaller towns near the base of the volcano were instantly vaporized and killed by 900-degree gases. But all the way in Pompeii, you wouldn't even realize what's about to happen, looking in the sky seeing a massive cloud of smoke and ash filling the air. But surprisingly, many didn't run, staying in the city thinking they were at a safe distance, when only 10 minutes later, everything would instantly go pitch black. Ash and smoke traveling hundreds of miles per hour coated the city in seconds. People were immediately blocked inside their homes, literally turning their houses into ovens. In only minutes, buildings collapsed and streets were covered in ash taller than you, making it impossible for you to run away in time. The sound of debris and ash was also extremely loud, like a constant hissing, making it extremely hard for you to communicate in the darkness. Within minutes, hundreds of people already suffocated. But it gets worse. If you still somehow survived, only a few hours later, a wave of superheated gas over 500 degrees swept the city at 100 miles per hour. Even if you were safe inside your home, you would instantly start choking on the air and suffocate from burning hot gas in your lungs. Where in a matter of one day, the entire city of Pompeii and all areas in the region were gone, taking the lives of over 16,000 people. Leopard seals are far deadlier than what you thought, and are way more terrifying than what they seem. But why? First off, they're absolutely massive, over 12 feet long and weigh over 1,300 pounds, equivalent to 2 full-grown grizzly bears. Not only that, their teeth are extremely sharp, specifically made to bite through flesh. But how is this scary? Well, leopard seals are known for being extremely stealthy, doing things like floating near breathing holes or cracks, peeking through motionless. And when a penguin passes through, they'll explode upwards and pull you under. Or sometimes they'll even lurk in the darkness under iceberg edges for hours, quietly waiting without making bubbles until something finally drops in front of them. And if you were to try to outswim them, they can swim up to 23 miles per hour, easily catching up to you no matter how far you got. But it gets worse once they get you. They'll do things like thrashing penguins around in their jaws, skinning them alive with their teeth, making them easier to eat. Or even more brutal, they'll let you escape and swim away as a joke, and then bite you again over and over until you eventually die. Known for killing tens of thousands of animals in its lifetime, making it the second most deadly on the Antarctica food chain. These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Cleopatra. First off, she had a secret drinking club called the Inimitable Livers, hosting feast or parties where everyone drank tons of alcohol, showed off luxury, and reportedly disguised as civilians wandering the streets plastered, pranking, or messing with random strangers. Next, Cleopatra loved to enter places dramatically. More specifically for important meetings, she would arrive on a massive decorated barge with purple sails, gold everywhere, dressed like a goddess, perfume or incense in the air, and had music playing. But it gets crazier. She was only about 18 when she became queen, turned into one of the most powerful and richest women in ancient history, spoke 9 different languages, and actually wasn't praised for her beauty, but more for her extreme intelligence, personality, and smooth voice that could apparently charm anyone. Even more insane, she married 2 of her younger brothers, but both later died after conflicts with her. She would test poison on prisoners to see which ones were the quickest, most painless, or didn't ruin your appearance. One time dissolved a pearl in her drink and chugged it for a bet, and even stuffed herself inside of a bundle of bedding to secretly meet with Julius Caesar and secure her throne. But the most insane, Cleopatra wasn't even Egyptian. She was Greek and was alive closer to the invention of the iPhone than the actual building of the pyramids. The T-Rex was a lot more horrifying than you initially thought, and were way deadlier than what you learned. But why? First off, T-Rex had padded feet, meaning you wouldn't even hear them coming, only feeling the vibration of the ground and sounds of branches snapping around you until it was too late. But it gets more terrifying. They had better eyesight than eagles and could easily see you from over 3 miles away. And since they had binocular vision, they wouldn't see you from the side, but stare directly at you. Even if you tried running away, their sense of smell was so strong they could track you down for miles, constantly following you, sometimes even hunting in groups to catch you. But worst of all, they had one of the strongest bite forces on the planet, meaning when they caught you, they wouldn't just eat you. Instead, they pinned you down with their legs and ripped you apart piece by piece. Did you know that dolphins eat the world's deadliest poison on purpose just so they can get high? What they do first is gang up around a pufferfish and take turns biting into it, because pufferfish contain a strong poison called tetrodotoxin, which usually kills most animals that come into contact. But since dolphins are much larger, they can actually survive if they do it right, where they learn to gently bite down for only a few seconds at a time, passing it around to the other dolphins, all without actually killing the pufferfish. Once they've all had enough, they leave it alone, where only a few minutes later, the toxins start kicking in. It's said that it makes dolphins feel a sense of euphoria, where they've been recorded slowly floating on the surface of the water, acting super mellow and calm, or sometimes even just staring at random things. Blackbeard was far more disturbing than you were told, and was so feared that entire ships would surrender just after seeing him. But how is this possible? First reason, Blackbeard would psychologically torture you. Unlike normal pirates, Blackbeard was a master at fear tactics, known to randomly fire off cannons or even shoot his own crewmates. He stood at 6'4", towering over his entire crew, wearing darker clothing and was extremely unpredictable. But that's not even why he was so scary, because his main goal wasn't just to steal from your ship, but traumatize you as much as possible. He would follow your ship for multiple hours, standing completely motionless, staring at you as he caught up. On top of that, he would put fuses in his hat and beard to look like a demon chasing after you, where most ships would immediately surrender after seeing this without having to fire a single shot. But it gets worse once he boards your ship. Instead of killing, he would rather give you extreme trauma, mocking you with weapons, destroying your ship, and making loud noises, all while stealing everything. Once you're mentally destroyed, he'll let you go just so you can tell stories about him. This tactic caused so much fear around his name, sailors would cancel their trips just after hearing rumors, or would even be scared to say his name at sea. At one point, becoming so powerful, he was able to block and take an entire port hostage, giving him everything he demanded for an entire week straight just so he would leave. Throughout his career, stealing over a dozen ships and fortunes of loot, but eventually all of this terror would come to an end after the British naval force finally decided to step in, where Blackbeard would fight to the end, taking 5 bullet wounds and over 20 sword slashes before finally going down. Excuse me, who are you and what do you do for a living?
I'm a Greenland shark and parasites eat my eyes for a living.
Ooh. Okay, anyways, first question, where do you live?
Right here, in the Arctic Midnight Zone, 7,000 feet down where the sun doesn't shine and the water is freezing.
Cool, man. So how do you eat down here?
Follow me.
Oh, sure. You slowing down for something?
We can only swim around 1/2 mile per hour, about as fast as a Roomba vacuum.
Oh yeah, we could take it slow then. Anyways, next question. Do you have any friends or family that you hang out with?
What's that?
Okay, so what do you do for fun down here?
I like to count the parasites in my eyes. Yesterday I hit a record of 4.
That sounds pretty fun.
Oh, and here's the food you asked about before.
Oh, What's that?
Carrion. Basically just a rotting body.
Looks good. Alright, anyways, last question. How many years have you been doing this for? I'm guessing you're in your mid-40s or something like that.
More.
50s?
More.
60s?
More.
70s?
I'm 400 years old.
These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Socrates. Firstly, he was considered extremely annoying, known to constantly walk around public and approaching random people in the street and intensely questioning their knowledge, often exposing them for being wrong, which made many people in Athens hate him. Next, he would sometimes turn into a statue. It's reported Socrates would randomly freeze, standing in place for multiple hours, all throughout day and night just thinking, where crowds of people and even soldiers would form around him, simply watching. But he gets weirder. He was almost always barefoot, even in winter, wore the same basic clothes every day, and didn't care about money at all, often refusing to take payments and lived extremely cheap. Not even working a job for the last 2 decades of his life, spending all of his time debating philosophy. And he doesn't stop there. He would publicly humiliate powerful politicians in debates so often that he began drawing in crowds and gaining tons of influence, becoming such a problem that he was eventually jailed and sentenced to execution for supposedly corrupting the youth. But the most insane is that Socrates could have escaped. Many friends and even corrupt insiders offered to help him escape the execution, but he refused because he believed escaping would go against all of his beliefs. And on the day of execution, he stayed completely calm, drinking the poison and discussed philosophy with his friends as it slowly paralyzed his body until he finally collapsed. These are the terrifying steps you would face if you got chosen to fight in the Colosseum. First, Roman guards would break down your door and pull you out of your home. If you couldn't pay your debt, were a criminal, or even a slave, you could get chosen at any random moment. Next, they would shackle you up and drag you through the streets, scraping your entire body as they made their way towards the Colosseum. But it gets more brutal. They'll then march around with your body through crowded streets as an example, letting people spit or hit you as they dragged you everywhere. And eventually, you would be taken underneath the Colosseum, pulling you through a dark hallway into a holding cell with nothing in it except a cold floor, forcing you to stay in the cell for multiple days or even weeks as they decided your fate and advertised your upcoming fight. And it was nearly impossible for you to sleep, hearing the crowd chanting all day and people dying directly above your head. Even at night, you would hear wild animals as they kept them in the same room as prisoners. Next, after all this waiting, on a random day, they'll suddenly unlock your door and pull you out. You're now about to discover your fate. If they gave you weapons and armor, you could possibly be a gladiator, fighting other prisoners, having the best chance at survival. But if they handed you a dull wooden sword or a towel, your life was already over, facing the punishment called damnatio ad bestias, being thrown into one final small pitch black cell, hearing the crowd roaring around you, praying to fight something easy, eventually opening the door in front of you, walking out and seeing a crowd of over 50,000 people cheering for your death. And in a moment of truth, the Roman guards will raise a small platform within the Colosseum, being met with whatever animal you have to face, which they specifically starved and agitated. You could try to fight back, but the best thing you could do is accept your fate. If you tossed a single rock into this tiny hole in the Nevada desert, you could kill off this entire species of fish. Meet the devil's hole pupfish, one of the rarest fish on Earth that definitely shouldn't be alive. But why? Let's start with their home. You see this small pool right here? Well, this is where every single one of them on Earth lives. Just a 10 feet wide and 70-foot long hole in the middle of a desert, where the water temperature sits at around 90 degrees Fahrenheit at all times, and barely has any oxygen. So how do they survive this? Well, you see, they've lived in this exact spot for thousands of years, meaning their bodies have literally adapted to survive this specific pool of water. Not only that, but the food source for their entire existence is sustained from a singular spot of algae growing on a tiny rock shelf. But this is where things get bad, as this means only a small amount of fish could live here at once. So no, there's not a few thousand of these fish, but only about 75 pupfish that live in this pool as of today, with a small all-time record of only about 540 pupfish. But the biggest problem of all, scientists say these pupfish are the most inbred species on the entire Earth, giving them a huge disadvantage genetically, where even small events like weather or tiny environment changes could wipe them out. For example, one time 3 drunk men broke into the devil's hole, swam around, crushed eggs, and vomited in the water, putting the whole species at risk. But somehow they're still alive to this day, living in this exact spot for well over 10,000 years. Have you ever wondered why everyone fears sharks and see them as monsters, when in reality they're way more misunderstood than you think? But why? Well, first off, sharks don't even like eating humans. Although in movies they're shown as these deadly and soulless man-eaters, most attacks specifically on humans are usually just mistakes or confusion due to misidentification. Not only that, but sharks only kill about 5 to 10 people a year, even though millions of people swim in the ocean daily. You're more likely to die from lightning, deers, or even coconuts, claimed to kill around 150 people per year, although that number is debated. Even crazier, out of 500 different shark species, only 30 have ever bitten humans, and around 3 are real threats. Also, some sharks are known for being calm around humans. For example, lemon sharks often hang out with divers and don't mind being pet, or have even been seen blocking other sharks from approaching divers giving them attention. And in general, most shark species tend to avoid conflict rather than getting themselves involved. But the most insane thing is that sharks have kept the ecosystem balanced for over 400 million years, long before dinosaurs. So without them in the beginning, ecosystems could have collapsed and the world would have developed very differently, meaning we probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for sharks. These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Napoleon. Firstly, Napoleon was overly obsessed with taking hot baths, often sitting in a tub for multiple hours every day, writing letters and giving orders while servants kept refilling it with hot water, even having a portable emergency bath for active military operations. Next, Napoleon would sometimes disguise himself as a civilian just to hear what people are saying about him. He would walk around France listening to people, having conversations, or sometimes even debating soldiers about himself. But he gets weirder. Napoleon was extremely obsessed with cologne, using it so much it was reported he ordered 50 bottles of cologne every month. At one point, even drinking tiny drops, believing it had benefits. Napoleon also barely slept, only 3 to 4 hours every night, thinking too much sleep made you a weak man. Along with eating extremely fast, finishing meals in under 10 minutes, thinking eating was a waste of time. He also had a severe licorice addiction, always keeping some in his pocket wherever he went. Eating so much of it, his teeth would often be stained black. Beyond that, he would get way too focused during battles, completely ignoring danger, where gunshots and cannonballs would reportedly hit near him and he just kept giving orders. Or also completely forgetting to eat meals, where soldiers literally had to hand or feed him food while he worked. The Titanic was a lot more horrifying than you thought, and was far worse than what you learned. But why? First off, you would be sleeping when it hit the iceberg, waking up to a loud bang and shake in the middle of the night, and at first you wouldn't even realize what happened, most people going back to sleep thinking nothing of it. When only 20 minutes later you would start to hear commotion in the halls, being told to go to the top deck immediately, still in your night clothes thinking it was some kind of drill. At this point the crew already knew the ship was going down, but you wouldn't even know it yet, only feeling a very slight tilt in the ship. On the top deck they would try to keep you distracted by playing music while slowly releasing safety boats to prevent panic, where only women and children could escape first. But as time moved on, the tilting grew much worse, where people on the bottom deck would start to see water flowing through the halls and rooms, standing in a large crowd for over an hour waiting to hopefully get a lifeboat. But as the clock neared around 2 a.m., a slow realization would take place that there's not enough safety boats for everyone. At this point, the entire ship would go into a full panic, needing to fight against the crowd to try to get onto the last few boats. Within the panic, the ship would tilt even more, causing the power to go out, which would be pitch black since there was no moonlight on that day. At around 2:18, the tilt would become so extreme it would eventually cause the ship to snap in half, many people flying off or being hit by debris. And if you somehow stayed on the ship, it was now rapidly sinking, where your only choice was to either dive into the pitch black 28 degrees water trying to find a lifeboat, or stay on the ship slowly being lowered into the water, freezing to death. People are saying you're the most dangerous shrimp in the ocean. Can I ask you a few questions?
Go for it.
Who do you go by?
Pistol shrimp.
And what do you do for a living?
I shoot for a living.
Damn! Okay, first question, how did you do that?
With this oversized claw right here, has a built-in mechanism that snaps real fast.
And that kills things?
Yeah, I can show you. Follow me.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, as we swim, do you get along with other pistol shrimp out here?
Not really. We often get into shootouts over territory and stuff like that.
Seriously?
Yeah, I had to kill a man to get that little rock cut over there.
Oh, dang. So I heard you guys are one of the loudest animals on Earth. Is that true?
Yeah, when we shoot, it can reach up to 218 decibels, louder than a jet engine.
Actually?
Yeah, apparently it messes with Navy sonars and stuff.
That's crazy. Okay, one more thing. How does your claw actually kill? Because I know it snaps fast, but like how?
Basically, my claw has a plunger inside that snaps so fast it creates a cavitation bubble with only vapor inside. The pressure around the bubble is so strong it almost gets as hot as the surface of the sun.
What?
Then collapses, creating a shockwave that kills my prey.
That's just ridiculous.
Oh, and you see that crab over there?
Bring him in the interview.
Oh, sure, why not? Hey buddy, how you doing? What's your name for the interview?
Oh, hey, my name is...
Did you know that Komodo dragons are terrifying stalkers and will follow you for days in the most horrifying way? What they do first is locate a prey and watch your movements, see where you walk, and common places you go. Once they know where their prey might visit, they'll position themselves and hide exactly where you were, commonly hiding near paths or water sources. And they'll wait for hours, hidden within brush, until something finally passes them again. And once they do, they'll ambush and bite you out of nowhere. But most of the times, the prey will escape, as his attack wasn't meant to catch you and was only the beginning of their plan. As the prey runs away, they'll suddenly start to feel extremely weak and tired, because Komodo dragons contain a strong venom within their bite, which after entering your body thins your blood, drops your blood pressure, and gradually weakens your muscles. Then using their tongue, they can detect particles from your blood and injuries, allowing them to constantly track you down from miles away. Known to continuously follow you for hours or even multiple days as the venom slowly takes over your body. At one point, the venom will cause your legs and muscles to completely shut down, where your only choice is to lay down as the Komodo dragon slowly makes its way towards you, then eating you alive while being fully conscious. Did you know that crows can hold a grudge against you for your entire life? Because if you ever try to hurt or attack a crow, they can actually remember your face, where if they ever see you again, they're able to instantly recognize you as a threat. But it doesn't stop there, as crows are extremely communicative, and will go as far as telling the rest of its flock to remember your face as well, also passing down their grudge against you to their babies. So even after the crow you taunted dies, other generations of crows will continue to have this grudge against you, where they're known to do things like loudly squawk at you non-stop, constantly shadowing over you just watching, or rarely they'll swoop down at you, making sure they never forget what you did. The Black Death was far more disturbing than you thought, and was way closer to killing us than you realize. But how? It all began with a singular merchant ship coming from Asia arriving in Sicily, but something was off. As they docked, you would discover nearly all the sailors on board were either dead or covered in black boils the size of eggs. In a panic, the ship was ordered to leave, but it was already too late. Infected rats, fleas, and sailors left the ship just before, where the disease spread almost instantly within the town of Messina. You would be unknowingly spreading it to everyone around you, where entire neighborhoods and families were slowly starting to get sick. But it was about to get much worse, because only about 2 to 3 weeks later, you would suddenly start to see entire families dying within days of each other, and bodies piling up in the streets. Even doctors and priests treating families started dying as well, resulting in a mass wave of panic. People were covered in black boils, had high fevers, and were vomiting blood. And within a matter of only months, it spread all across southern Europe, causing entire towns to be killed off and abandoned. At one point, the plague even turned airborne, where you could get infected just by being next to someone. Now spreading even more rapidly, sweeping through major cities, and killing off nearly half the population everywhere it touched. But it gets darker. Over 2 years in, Europe was collapsing. Hundreds of thousands of people were dying no matter what city or town you moved to. People tried tons of different practices and cures, but nothing would save you. And in the third year, the plague was killing everything. Millions of people and even animals were dying. Being so deadly, you would die within only 2 to 7 days after infection. And about 4 years in, the populations got so low, it was running out of hosts, finally starting to slow down. But the damage was already done. Nearly 50 to 60% of people in Europe were gone, and millions of more across the world, with a death toll around 50 to 200 million victims. Did you know that one of the world's deadliest viruses is actually on your side? Meet the bacteriophage, a lethal virus that's hunting in your body right now. But how come this doesn't kill you? Well, first reason, unlike normal viruses, bacteriophages don't hunt your healthy cells. They hunt bacteria. And the way they kill is horrifying. All beginning when a phage lands on a bacteria cell in your body. Using tiny leg-like fibers, it locks onto the surface. Then with sharp spikes underneath its body, it pierces straight through the bacteria, pushing down until it fully locks in place. And it only gets worse. A tube connected to the phage's head filled with DNA then pushes through the surface, injecting its own DNA straight into the bacteria, essentially hijacking the bacteria's machinery, turning it into its own factory, forcing it to create dozens or sometimes hundreds of clones of the phage inside itself, until eventually there's so many bacteriophage copies inside that the bacteria literally explodes, where a whole new army of bacteriophage burst out ready to kill more bacteria just for you, all happening with inside your body right now. Jack the Ripper was far more disturbing than you thought, and was so horrifying he made entire cities afraid to sleep at night. But how is this possible? First reason, all of his murders happened in the same area. Each body was found within walking distance from each other, all killed inside of a small 1-mile radius, and was somehow never seen. But it gets more disturbing. He would hunt his victims at around midnight to 4 AM, making him almost invisible, purposely attacking in dark or dimly lit areas, and would only last minutes, leaving before anyone could see him. And when the bodies were found, it wasn't just stabs. Some were left unrecognizable, cut open, or found with almost perfectly surgical cuts, missing organs. But he doesn't stop there. After every murder, letters claiming to be from Jack the Ripper would be sent to police and officials, mocking or describing the murder in graphic detail. One official even received a message with a piece of human kidney alongside. Even worse, he didn't wear a top hat or cape like it was said, but rather looked completely normal, meaning it could be anyone, which sent London into a full panic. People were terrified to sleep at night and patrolled the streets in groups looking just for him. On top of this, he would barely leave any clues or evidence behind, where police had to investigate thousands of different people and hundreds of different suspects, even including a woman later nicknamed Jill the Ripper. Still, nothing helped. But the darkest of all, there's only 5 victims we know about, with the possibility of much more, which he all did in the span of only 10 weeks, suddenly stopping in November 1888, where still to this day, no one 100% knows who Jack the Ripper is.
Did you know there's a seal that causes so much damage that locals have an insurance policy just for him? Meet Neil the Seal, a teenage elephant seal that is known for terrorizing the public in Tasmania. But how exactly? Well, let's start with the less destructive things, such as flopping himself down in the middle of a busy road and blocking traffic, where no matter how much poking or scaring locals try, he usually just screams at you and flops back in place. And he doesn't stop there. Neil also seems to hate infrastructure, known to fight things like poles, bollards, traffic cones, or anything poking out of the ground. Still, this is only the least destructive thing he's done. For instance, Neil is not only known to nap on your front porch, trapping you inside, or laying in front of your car, blocking you from going to work, but it's also common for him to just destroy your property, especially mailboxes and fences. So much so that insurances like the RACT will cover damages for seals like Neil. But the craziest part is, Neil isn't just doing this because he's evil. You see, Neil is just a 5-year-old southern elephant seal, and as he continues growing up to 3 times his size, young males like him are supposed to fight and socialize with other seals. But when Neil shows up in town, there's usually no other seals to interact with. So instead, the town itself becomes his social interaction.
Did you know elephants can flip into a deadly state they can't control and turn so dangerous even other elephants avoid them? But why? Well, it's called must, a chemical state that hijacks an elephant's brain every 1 to 2 years. Specifically in male elephants, this phase causes a spike in testosterone up to 60 times its normal limit. So much testosterone that fluid begins leaking from their head, smell extremely strong, and leak urine non-stop, no longer the animal they once were. But this is where they get scary. They become uncontrollably aggressive, attacking almost everything, known to charge at animals and even tourists with no hesitation or bluffing whatsoever. Or much worse, they'll go on rampages destroying anything near them, including trees and bushes, flipping cars, or flattening village homes. It's also said they ignore pain, injuries, and deterrence, making them nearly unstoppable. But the darkest things they'll do is brutally stab other elephants with their tusks, throw or push over baby elephants, crushing random animals until death for no reason, and aggressively mount elephants, objects, and in rare cases other animals. Meant for dominance and mating, this phase can last for days or even months, eventually slowing down and turning back to normal. Have you ever wondered why everyone says the platypus shouldn't exist? And even scientists thought this animal was fake? Why is this? To start, the platypus is a mammal that can somehow lay eggs. As when it was first discovered, it was thought to be some kind of weird bird, a reptile, or even a new class of animal, not making any biological sense. But it gets weirder, as platypus sweat milk. They don't have nipples like normal animals. Instead, when it's time to feed their puggles, glands underneath their skin excrete milk, which they just lick off its body. And that's not the only thing under their fur. On a male platypus's hind legs, they have a venomous stinger, simply kicking to inject venom so strong it can paralyze animals and cause extreme pain in humans for months with no cure. It doesn't stop there. When underwater, they go blind, deaf, and can't smell. Instead, their beak acts as a radar, detecting electric fields, allowing them to find their way around and hunt down prey. But when they catch their prey, they don't even have teeth to chew, putting rocks and gravel in their mouth and grinding everything in their beak. And when they swallow, they don't even have a stomach either, water. Instead, food just passes through their intestines, absorbing nutrients. Then when they have to poop, pee, or even give birth, it all comes out of one singular hole in their body called a cloaca. They're the only known mammal to have 10 sex chromosomes instead of the usual 2, glow blue and green in the dark when shined under a UV light, and are so strange looking, early scientists cut it open looking for stitches, thinking it was a joke.
Woo! Right through the neck, baby!
Whoa, what happened?
Dude, you missed it! Some dude just got decapitated!
Oh my god, that's horrible.
Horrible? Their shit was amazing!
Yeah, what's the next show?
Oh, Damnatio ad Bestia. Some dude is gonna fight a deadly animal.
Oh my, what animal?
Oh, we don't know yet, but we'll see though. Oh, look, it's starting! There he is!
Oh.
That guy!
Whoa, what did he do?
He tried to put a curse on his neighbor. He deserves it.
A curse? Okay, where's his weapon?
Weapon? He's already dead.
Anyways, what's that hole in the ground over there?
Oh, that's where the animal comes from. They keep them underground for weeks and abuse the shit out of them so they get super angry.
Oh, poor animal.
Oh, look, it's rising! It's rising!
Is that a bear?
Oh, let's go! My parlay hit! It's a bear!
So what happens now? Is he gonna like dance around it or something?
Yeah! Kill that boy!
These are horrifying facts no one tells you about Mount Everest that only get worse. First off, dead bodies are used as landmarks. Over 330 people have died on Everest and around 200 bodies are still there, meaning you'll see people who died years ago almost perfectly preserved looking like they're still alive, helping climbers remember where they are or where not to go. But it gets darker. As you go up, the air can make you go insane. On Everest, the air is so thin it can lead to a disturbing condition called hypoxia, which starves your brain of oxygen, taking away your ability to think straight, make you hear voices or things that aren't there, take off important gear without realizing, or even walking off path never to be seen again. But it doesn't stop there, as your body will literally start to eat itself. If you manage to climb high enough, you'll reach an area called the death zone, where it's not just your mind anymore. The lack of oxygen makes your muscles become weak, can cause fluid to fill your lungs, non-stop headaches and nausea, your body can't heal, brain swelling, and at any moment you can collapse. And if you think you could be saved, there's no guarantee. When too high up, helicopters are unable to reach you, and rescuing is sometimes impossible, extremely exhausting, or can kill you, often forcing others to leave you behind to survive. But worst of all, it's estimated 50 to 60% of all deaths on Everest are on the way down, meaning even if you finally reach the top, there's no guarantee you'll make it back. Have you ever wondered why nothing attacks a capybara? They seem to be friends with nearly every living being on the planet, but why? First off, capybaras are naturally calm and very social creatures. They don't care if you go near it or bother them. They're also herbivores, so there's no need to attack other animals and are basically friends with everything. Known to hang out around caimans without getting attacked and also riding on top of them, where even extremely vicious animals like jaguars and pumas are seen chilling with them as well. But still, why don't these deadly animals attack it? Well, in reality, you've been lied to. Because most of these clips you've seen of them chilling around these predators is simply because they're already full, or just too lazy to hunt them at that moment, meaning capybaras aren't always seen as friends. Have you ever wondered how the dodo bird was erased forever and suffered the most tragic extinctions in history? What caused this? It all started about 8 million years ago when a group of ancient pigeons were blown off course by a storm, accidentally discovering an island called Mauritius with no predators and infinite food and fruit. In over thousands of generations, these pigeons lived in paradise, causing their bodies to change. Without a need to fly, their wings grew tiny and bodies grew heavier, and with no danger, their brains forgot how to feel fear, eventually forming the dodo bird. But one day, this paradise was about to meet something horrifying. A group of European sailors discovered Mauritius walking onto the island, being met with these curious and kind birds that walked straight up to them, which made the dodo a perfect food source. After this discovery, many starving trade route sailors would constantly come back to this island, harvesting fruit, chopping down trees, and hunting dodo birds. But worst of all, these ships carried rats, pigs, and dogs, which often fled to the island, eating their eggs, hoarding all of their food, and taking out living dodos with zero survival instincts, leading the population to drop severely over the next few years. And before the sailors even realized the damage they've done, in 1662, the dodo bird was spotted one last time, going entirely extinct for being too curious and friendly. The Ice Age was a lot deadlier than what you thought, and should have been the end of the human species. But why? Firstly, humans were one of the weakest beings and had no fur, meaning just by stepping outside you could instantly go blind and freeze to death due to constant blizzards, needing to stay sheltered in dark caves for days on end until it cleared up. But it gets worse, as you were constantly being hunted, where saber-tooths or short-faced bears standing over 11 feet tall would hunt you during the day, and even if you waited until night, direwolves the size of you would hunt you down as well. But even worse, you couldn't grow crops, so you were forced to go outside and face all of these predators without a choice, equipped with only stone tools and bones as your main weapons to catch food and survive, needing to sacrifice multiple friends within your group just for every meal. But worst of all, you were statistically supposed to die before age 25 to 35, since this was the average lifespan, where the human population at this time dropped so low it was said we only had a few thousand left in the world, with an average group size of around 20 to 50 people at most, or sometimes much lower, being the hardest time period to ever live in. These are the horrifying things you would face if you got raided by Vikings. First off, you wouldn't even know they were coming. Viking attacks usually took place early in the morning or at night when most people were defenseless or asleep. But even if you were awake, you wouldn't hear or see them either. Vikings were expert boat builders and made longships that stayed almost completely silent when sailing, sat low in the water barely visible from shore, and made to dock directly on land quickly unlike normal ships. But this is only the beginning. Before your town can even react, they've already been prepared for hours, instantly jumping off their ship entirely armed and organized. After only a minute or two, all at once charging your town, weapons in the air, screaming. Waking you up, their goal now wasn't just to steal everything, but create fear. During raids, they made themselves look inhuman, wearing intimidating clothing, sometimes animal skins, and would immediately start killing to cause chaos. This mix of panic and fear worked so well, most people wouldn't even try fighting back as they broke into your home, looting anything valuable. And if you did, Vikings had years of combat experience over you and were extremely violent. Some were even called berserkers, rumored to take some kind of drugs because they fought in a possessed-like state and ignored pain. So even if you complied, they would sometimes just kill you anyways. But more often, you'd be taken away from your home enslaved, held for ransom, or used in ways far worse. By now, your entire town would be ransacked, homes burned down so it couldn't recover, and survivors taken or left with nothing. And in just hours, they would leave with everything before any defense could get there in time to save you. These are 4 animals you didn't know were best friends. First, ravens and wolves work together to hunt, where ravens will fly around looking for prey, then flying back to the wolves, getting their attention and leading them to the animal they saw, waiting for the kill and sharing the meal. Next, hermit crabs and an enemy basically team up together to survive. Since an enemy can't move fast, the crab will pick it up and equip it on its shell. The anemone helps defend the crab with its stinging tentacles, while the crab gives it much faster transportation and also shares scraps of its food every time it eats. Next, coyotes and badgers hunt together. Since coyotes are better at covering ground and badgers are better underground, the coyote will chase the prey on land, and if it goes under, the badger will take over, leaving the prey with no options or ways to escape, sharing their meal. Finally, humans and wild dolphins in Brazil work together to catch fish. The dolphins will find a school of fish and herd them towards the fishermen. When the fish are close, the dolphin will slap the water with its tail, signaling the fishermen to cast the net, causing the fish to scatter and get disorientated so it's easier for the dolphins to catch, rewarding both of them. 9 crazy reasons you could be accused as a witch in the 1600s. If you were way too attractive, getting lots of attention, they thought your looks might be used to manipulate people into witchcraft, killing you for it. If you were writing on a piece of paper and someone noticed you were left-handed, it was believed left-handed people had the devil's hand, ending your life. After an argument with someone, if you mumbled under your breath while walking away, people thought you were cursing them with a spell, executing you. If you were too good at cooking and baking, making better tasting food than your neighbors, they thought you used bewitched ingredients to make your food too enjoyable, torturing you to death. If you had a large birthmark, freckles, or moles, you'd be labeled as having the witch's mark, drowning you alive. If someone saw you in their dream, it was believed the person they saw is a witch using spiritual powers to invade your mind, burning you at the stake. If you were never in a relationship or weren't married, people might think you were overly independent, trying to hide something, taking your life. If you loved animals and had a lot of pets, especially cats, they thought you used them as a vessel to transform into to spread your witchcraft, killing you and your pets.
Hey, back off! This is my kill! You're not getting shit!
Oh, come on, man. You gotta give him something.
I'm starving, dude. I don't care!
So is he.
I said I don't care!
Come on.
Oh, alright, fine. This is all you're getting. Oh my god! Now there's 3 of them! What do you want me to do now?
Dude, they could help you.
No, they can't.
Yes, they can.
That's cap.
I'm not lying. They could help you kill that thing right over there.
Wait, they can help me hunt those?
Yeah.
Yo guys, I have a deal. If you help me kill that thing over there, I'll give you some of my meat. Say less. Alright, bet.
You got a friend in me. You got a
Have you ever wondered why the blobfish is called the ugliest animal in the world and made fun of for its looks, when in reality it's not supposed to look like this at all? But why? Firstly, blobfish aren't built like normal fish. Instead of having a tough body and hard bones, they have a jelly-like skeleton and almost no muscles, making them very squishy and fragile, barely able to swim. But this is actually perfect. You see, blobfish live deep in the ocean, around 600 to over 1,000 meters down, where the pressure is 100 times stronger than the surface. So their soft bodies actually help, making them slightly less dense than water, allowing them to float above the seafloor, drifting around eating animals without wasting energy, and look like a completely normal fish. But this is where the problems begin. You see, fishermen use something called trawling nets, which are made to drag along the ocean floor to catch other deep sea animals. But because these nets reach so far down, they often drag straight through the blobfish's environment and catch them by accident, pulling them hundreds of meters out of their natural habitat, where the pressure drops rapidly. Without strong bones and low amounts of muscle, it'll cause their bodies to lose shape. Face stretches and sags downwards, and body collapses into a droopy looking blob, no longer the animal they once were. And this is the version of the blobfish people take pictures of, making fun of an animal that was never meant to leave its home. Did you know that penguins can propose and actually get married to each other just by using a rock? The first step is during mating season, where the male penguin will search the crowd looking for a female he likes. Once he has a crush, he'll remember their face, going out on a mission looking for the most perfect pebble he can find. When searching, they try to look for ones that are smooth, shiny, have a flat surface, and are clean. Once they find this special rock, the penguin will carry it in their beak all the way back to their crush, where it all comes down to a moment of truth, at which the male penguin will simply walk up to the female and lay the stone down at her feet. If she doesn't pick up the rock, that means she's not interested or already taken, which can cause the male to panic, constantly dropping more pebbles hoping she changes her mind. Or sometimes their mate might see this and attack the other penguin. But on the other hand, if she does pick up the pebble, it's a yes, where they will then spend the next few days building a nest together, then raising an entire family for months until they grow up, continuously meeting each other over and over again every single mating season. Excuse me, sir, do you own this property?
Oh, yeah, I built it all myself. You want a tour?
Yeah, that would be great, but where's the damn door?
Oh no, we don't do that here. Follow me.
What?
You see, us beavers build our homes with secret entrances underwater so predators can't get in.
Smart.
And welcome inside.
Wow.
So right here is actually the dry-off area, so yeah, here.
Oh, yeah.
And there's the bedroom and the nursery area where the family is. Say hi, guys.
Hey guys, and how long did this take you to build?
About a week and a half with the family.
Wow, and how did you cut all this wood so fast?
With these bad boys right here. Packed with iron, so they're extremely strong.
So that's why they're orange?
Yep. Plus, if I don't aggressively bite wood every single day, they'll grow back in my face and kill me.
Really?
Yeah, but it's worth it. We help create massive wetlands that support the whole ecosystem.
Damn.
No, this is the lodge. Them is outside.
What?
Also, building all this could be dangerous too. My son is actually logging above us right now.
Are you sure that's safe?
Oh yeah, we're usually great at dodging Hey, you see that guy over there?
Yeah?
We hate him.
Huh? What? Why?
Rich's birthday party, '09. He did us dirty.
That's like 17 years ago. How do you even remember that?
We hold grudges for years.
Well, what did he do?
He threw a pine cone at me when I was trying to eat.
What? I mean, that's pretty bad, but 17 years is kind of crazy, huh?
For the next 7 generations, you will teach your children, your children's children, your children's children's children. When you see this man, you will dive bomb, steal, peck, and take his wife. Never forget.
That guy. Whoa, what did you tell him?
Now show him what you're made of, boy.
Dive bomb, mother. Ah!
Did you know there was a bear that fought in World War II alongside the Polish? It all started when a group of soldiers stumbled into a kid selling a baby bear in the Middle East, trading it with the kid for some food because they thought it was cute. And in the beginning, it was nothing more than a pet, feeding it milk and honey daily, keeping company in their tents, and even naming it Wojtek. But over time, the bear grew giant, over 6 feet tall and 500 pounds, planning on leaving him behind until they realized they could actually utilize the bear, deciding to register him into an official military rank called Private Wojtek, bypassing laws not allowing animals to travel, where Wojtek would actually work on the front lines with the Polish, helping carry heavy artillery shells or anything too heavy, saving tons of energy. Even off the battlefield, he would help detect spies, since every time one snuck in, they would freak out after seeing Wojtek, letting everyone know you weren't one of them.
Horrifying reasons you can never survive the Titanoboa. Starting off, they were 8 times longer than you, reaching up to 50 feet long, about the width of an average home, and around 2,500 pounds heavy as a small car. The largest snake to ever exist. But it gets worse. You wouldn't even know they were coming. Despite being as large as a bus, Titanoboas were actually ambush predators, commonly hiding in murky water, had camouflage skin, and made almost zero sound, staying almost entirely invisible when hunting you. Even more terrifying, it's estimated they could swim 8 to 12 miles per hour, easily able to outswim you. But even if you did somehow escape, Titanoboas had bodies extremely sensitive to vibrations, meaning they could feel every movement you make and find exactly where you're hiding without even needing to see you. Then if you think being on land will save you, it wasn't impossible for them to hide right on shore, within logs, under thick vegetation, or swamp grass in plain sight. But worst of all is when they catch you, capable of striking in less than a second, biting into you with a mouth that opens 3 feet wide, about half the size of your body, with teeth curved backwards, no way to escape once it bit you. And it wouldn't end quickly, slowly wrapping around your body, squeezing so hard, it would feel like a small car laying on top of you, cutting off your blood flow, all until you stop moving, swallowing you entirely whole.
These are 4 animals with the most overpowered hunting tactics. First, falcons literally turn themselves into missiles. When they spot a prey below, it'll fly up, fold its wings into a bullet-like shape, and dive straight down, clenching its talons into fists while reaching up to 200 miles per hour, then punching the prey so hard it instantly stuns or kills it. Next, cuttlefish can mind control its food. Their skin has special cells that can instantly change colors and patterns, so they use this ability to hijack the prey's senses, purposely flashing colors or making a rippling effect on their body, which looks so insane it confuses and stuns the prey in place, making them an easy target to eat. Even crazier, the antlion has an automatic feeding machine. It'll dig a sandpit designed in a funnel-like shape and sit at the bottom, simply waiting until a prey steps in. Then every time it tries to escape, gravity will slide the sand beneath, slowly lowering them deeper, eventually just sliding straight into the antlion's jaws. Finally, the archerfish has a built-in sniper. Their main diet is insects, which live out of reach on land, so instead they'll use their tongue, pressing it on a groove inside their mouth, forming a gun barrel-like shape, then compressing their gills, firing a water beam that knocks the bug directly into the water to eat it. Did you know that ants can turn into zombies and experience the most horrifying process in nature? It all begins when a spore falls out of a fungus called Ophiocordyceps universalis, landing onto an ant. Without the ant even realizing, the spore attaches to its body and melts through a tiny spot in the exoskeleton, forcing its way inside. But this is where it gets disturbing. Under the surface, the fungus will slowly spread, wrapping around its muscles, organs, and taking over the nervous system. But the fungus doesn't want to kill the ant just yet, it wants control. So over the span of multiple days, it'll quietly feed off the ant's internal nutrients, growing stronger as the ant lives on. And once the fungus becomes strong enough, it'll fully hijack the ant's movements, using chemicals that force the ant's muscles to contract, or the ant will suddenly abandon its own colony, never to be seen again. But the fungus controls the body, not the brain, meaning the ant stays fully aware. The fungus will then make the ant walk up onto an elevated area for one final process. On a high branch or leaf, it'll force the ant to bite down extremely hard on the surface, locking it in place, unable to move. The fungus will then absorb everything left from the ant and create a fungus stalk longer than the ant's body, which kills the ant and releases spores to infect the rest of the colony, repeating the cycle again. Chernobyl was far more disturbing than you were told, and was so deadly that it still kills to this day. But how is this possible? It all began during a night shift in Chernobyl 1986, ironically performing a safety test. But during the procedure, they made a deadly mistake, accidentally lowering the reactor's power to a dangerously low level, not realizing a gas called xenon had been silently building up before, choking the reactor. To fix this, the workers tried to bring up the power by pulling out the safety rods, but this only made it worse. The power power spiked so unbelievably fast you wouldn't be able to read the numbers on the gauge, quickly slamming down the emergency button hoping to fix it, when suddenly, one of the most violent explosions in power plant history, so strong it blasted a 1,000-ton lid into the air and blew the entire reactor wide open. Radioactive material 400 times stronger than Hiroshima was now spreading through the sky, literally turning the air blue. Chernobyl workers, firefighters, and even rescue crews were unknowingly being exposed to deadly radiation as they tried helping. But it gets worse. Radioactive dust continued to spread into the nearby town of Pripyat and was completely invisible. The next day, people started tasting metal in the air, eyes were burning, felt nauseous, and had bright red skin, living in this radiation for nearly 2 full days before they were evacuated. But it was already too late. 134 of the first people on site fell victim to radiation poison in just days. And over the span of decades, long-term radiation effects continued taking out thousands of more people, leading to a total loss of around 4,000 lives.
Did you know there's a tree that literally grows bombs and could seriously hurt you if one explodes next to you? Meet the sandbox tree, where somehow the explosions isn't even the first danger you'll face. Let's start with the trunk. As you'll notice, they're covered in extremely sharp spikes, where if you try climbing or leaning up against a tree, you'll definitely feel it. But still, this is nowhere near the most dangerous part, as of course the tree produces toxic milky sap, not only causing painful blistering and rashes on contact, but if it gets into those spike wounds you got before, the pain would be a lot worse, along with causing blindness if it gets into your eyes. So dangerous, even early indigenous hunters use the sap for poisonous arrows, or it could be used to just straight up kill fish by dropping it in some water. But now finally, the bombs. These trees grow these cute pumpkin-shaped fruit capsules. Looks innocent, but as the fruit ripens, its hardwood and shell begins drying out and pulling extremely hard against itself, building up so much tension it essentially becomes a loaded grenade, until eventually it literally explodes, launching seeds around 95 up to 150 miles per hour, not only spreading its seed, but also causing some serious problems for you.
These are disturbing things you didn't know about Genghis Khan that only get worse. First off, you might be related to him. Genghis Khan was estimated to have kids with around 500 to 1,000 different women at the height of his power. So much is believed 1 out of 200 men alive today share genetic lineage linked to Genghis Khan's family. Next, Genghis Khan killed so many people, he changed the climate. His raids caused over 40 million deaths, roughly 10% of the world at the time, which left so much empty land that regrew and absorbed CO2 that it caused a slight cooling effect on the planet. But it gets more disturbing. He would psychologically trick you into becoming a mass murderer. Unlike most leaders, Genghis Khan shared his loot with his men and promoted them based on how well they fought and killed, giving his army a huge incentive to slaughter, creating the most brutal people you would ever encounter. Or worse, Genghis Khan's army would reportedly leave bodies on display outside of cities he conquered as a warning to others. Even darker, his attacks were so deadly he erased entire cities off the map. During his raids, he had a rule to kill nearly every living thing, including animals, reportedly creating rivers of blood in the streets. The only survivors would be a few women he picked out for himself, prisoners to use as meat shields, and skilled or smart people forced to help him. With nothing left, entire kingdoms would vanish into the ground, where even archaeologists had a hard time finding any remains. But the most creepy, when Genghis Khan died, legend says all witnesses, including the guards who carried his body, were killed, and all traces were erased, meaning his body could still be out there to this day. Did you know that this man saved your life and you probably didn't even know his name? It all started in 1983 during the Cold War. A Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov was on duty inside of a nuclear bunker. His job was simple: watch for incoming nuclear attacks from the US. Night after night, he would pretty much just stare at screens, waiting for nothing to happen. All until one night, when suddenly emergency alarms started blaring. Petrov quickly checked his computer and noticed there was a nuclear missile from the US coming straight towards Soviet territory. Then a few seconds later, 2, 3, 4, 5 missiles were now about to hit the Soviets. All Petrov had to do now was make a call to higher command, but this one decision could literally destroy the world. You see, if he called stating there was a nuclear attack, the Soviets would likely send missiles back at the US immediately in retaliation, which would not only cause destruction, but could be the start of World War III. The computer said the attack was real and a high confidence alert, but Petrov had a gut feeling something was off. He questioned why the US would only only send 5 missiles during a nuclear attack, knowing it would be hundreds. And also remember, the computer system he was using was brand new. Despite the pressure and the fact that he could be at fault for disaster, Petrov did call, but claimed the attack was a false alarm, trusting his human judgment over the machine. Everyone inside the bunker sat in silence, knowing they could die at any moment if he was wrong. But as minutes passed, something strange was happening. The missiles weren't showing up on the radar, only on the computer. The missiles should have hit by now, but nothing was happening. Because what none of them knew is that sunlight had reflected off high altitude clouds and tricked satellites into alerting. It was never a real attack, making Petrov's decision one that saved millions of lives.
Does anyone got food? I'm starving.
Let me see. We got some seeds.
God damn it, are you sure there's nothing else we could eat?
What about some roots?
This gotta be rage bait or something, dude.
Yeah, what the hell? We want meat.
Huh? What? What's that?
Meat.
Meat? What do you mean meat?
Meat.
Meat? Oh, God.
Come on, you guys are such p***s. Let's go.
John, I don't know, dude. I think the seeds are just fine, actually.
No, I'm sick of this. I'm killing this thing.
John, no. John, no! John!
I told you it's nothing, dude. Come on, let's go.
Meat.
12 Reasons Theodore Roosevelt was way more badass than you thought. Firstly, he had a fight club in the basement of the White House, often fighting staff members, Secret Service, or even diplomats. So obsessed that doctors begged him to stop, eventually going blind in one eye from it. Next, he was once shot in the chest before a speech, but a folded piece of paper in a glasses case slowed down the bullet just enough not to kill him, continuing to give a speech for 90 minutes as he bled through his shirt. And he only gets more badass. He once ditched his political career to become a cowboy after his wife and mother sadly died on the same day, where he would live on his own ranch, rode horses, hunted, and slept outside. One time even had his boat stolen, so he built another one, chased down the thieves for multiple days in freezing weather, and captured them. He doesn't stop there. He was so addicted to hiking that he would go out even in deadly conditions, and sometimes force diplomats to go hiking with him during meetings. Explored the Amazon rainforest in an uncharted area at 55 years old, almost dying multiple times. During battles, was known for charging directly into danger instead of avoiding it. Is one of the main reasons teddy bears and national parks exist now. Read multiple books every day, was so energetic and hardworking he would exhaust anyone who worked with him, and is the youngest US president in history, dying peacefully in his sleep. Quoted that death only won because Roosevelt wasn't awake to fight it.
Did you know about the most feared tiger in history that ate over 400 people? In the early 1900s Nepal, there was a singular tiger that would only hunt humans. It started with only a handful of victims at first, but over time it learned how humans worked and got better at attacking. It would target vulnerable people who were alone or defenseless during broad daylight. You could be going to gather firewood midday and get eaten alive out of nowhere. It would claim about 1 to 2 victims every week, eventually resulting in a man-eater crisis in Nepal, where entire villages would evacuate when an attack happened nearby, made people travel in large groups only, and even have curfews, slaying over 200 victims in Nepal, until it fled to the neighboring country of India due to the military targeting it, continuing to hunt hundreds of more victims in the same exact way, causing widespread panic. People even began boarding up their houses and were too scared to go outside during the day, taking over 200 more victims in India. But everything would come to an end after famous hunter Jim Corbett would use a human corpse as bait, putting one final blow to the man-eating tiger in 1907, with a total of 436 confirmed fatalities.
These are 10 weird things you didn't know about Leonardo da Vinci. Firstly, he would randomly follow people in the street. More specifically, if he had a large nose, protruding chin, or a weird face. He would reportedly trail you for hours just sketching you in his notebook. Next, he was a chronic procrastinator, taking years to finish paintings and often left many of his projects unfinished to start new ones, where the Mona Lisa itself took over a decade. But it gets weirder. He wrote everything backwards, writing from left to right, using a mirror to see what was on the paper, making it almost impossible to read on its own. He carried a tiny notebook everywhere he went in case he had an idea or wanted to draw. Had little to no formal education, yet still learned science, anatomy, and engineering by himself. He was believed to be a vegetarian, extremely rare for the time and would buy caged birds just to set them free, and even liked pranking people with his lizard, decorating it with wings, a beard, eyes, and horns to make it look like a dragon, then setting it free and scaring his guests. But he doesn't stop there. He would secretly dissect human bodies and study them, creating some of the most accurate anatomical drawings in history. Absolutely hated war, but designed tons of deadly war weapons, and predicted things similar to tanks, helicopters, parachutes, diving gear, and more, being hundreds of years ahead of his time.
Have you ever wondered how we domesticated dogs and turned them into a man's best friend? It all started about 30,000 years ago, where humans and wolves were pretty much enemies. Wolves would always try to sneak up on humans and try to scavenge leftover bones and food, and humans would typically kill or chase them away since they were aggressive. But sometimes there were wolves that weren't aggressive and simply stood near camps without bothering them. Noticing this, humans would only give the calm ones more food, and since they actually helped scare away predators and even warn us when something was near, we didn't mind them. Where these calm wolves began shadowing around humans all the time, and also helped us hunt, sharing the catch. And over time, we got so used to these wolves, we even began letting them live with us, only breeding and helping the ones with calm genetics and fighting off the aggressive ones. And throughout multiple generations of breeding, humans pretty much reshaped wolves' DNA to be friendlier towards us, and thousands of years later slowly became the dogs that we have today. Why are honey badgers one of the most feared creatures in the entire animal kingdom, where even lions, snakes, and elephants don't even try bothering it? First off, honey badgers are extremely aggressive, where no matter what size you are, they will challenge you. Known to have an extremely strong bite force, targeting your most vulnerable areas, like your eyes, throat, or even your balls. But it doesn't stop there, as honey badgers are pretty much mini tanks, doing things like fighting deadly snakes, passing out from the venom, then waking up to finish the job, ignoring pain and injuries, constantly fighting no matter what, or taking on multiple animals by itself. And even if you were to get a good bite off on a honey badger, they have extremely loose skin and will twist inside of their own body just to bite your face. So if you do somehow kill a honey badger, there's still no doubt it'll leave you mangled for life.
This bird should not exist and breaks every single rule of being a bird. Meet the kiwi, a bird that lays an egg so big its organs can barely fit in its own body. And somehow that's not even the weirdest thing about them. Let's start with their feathers. Unlike normal flying birds, kiwis have these weird strand or hair-like feathers, almost making them look like tiny mammals. And it's not just their feathers, even their bones are mammal-like, filled with marrow and built heavier instead of light and hollow. And they get weirder, as they have wings that are completely useless, only about 1 inch long so they can't fly, but have super strong legs instead, allowing them to quickly run around the forest floor and yes, also kick to defend themselves. They're also the only bird in the entire world with nostrils on the end of their beak, have cat-like whiskers on their face, are mostly nocturnal, often sleep standing up, and live in burrows underground. But the craziest of all, not only do their eggs take up about 20% of their entire body, making it physically impossible to eat for days, but have survived exactly like this for millions of years, which unfortunately might end in extinction soon thanks to the invasive species that we brought.
These are 3 people who survived unsurvivable things. First, in the early 1800s, explorer Hugh Glass was ripped to pieces by a grizzly bear. His leg was shattered, scalp torn off, punctured throat, and gashes everywhere. Having no hope, his friends took his gear and left him behind to die. But he didn't, crawling over 200 miles in the deadly wilderness, eating bugs, berries, and roots to survive. And after 6 months of crawling, he reached civilization and lived. Next, in 1945, a man named Stamu was on a business trip when one of the largest bombs in history hit 2 miles away from him in Hiroshima, launching him into the ground, causing serious burns, temporary blindness, and ruptured eardrums, but survived, going back home to Nagasaki to work again. While describing how he survived to his boss, another atomic bomb dropped, hiding for cover and luckily surviving once more. Finally, in 1972, while a flight attendant named Vesna was on a plane ride, a briefcase bomb suddenly exploded, launching her out of the plane. Everyone else on the plane died, while Vesna fell strapped to her seat over 33,000 feet into a snowy hillside, breaking nearly every bone in her body, but survived and lived a normal life after.
How did this dentist become one of the deadliest men in World War II and take out dozens of soldiers all by himself in one battle? It all began in 1944 during the Battle of Saipan, where a soon-to-be dangerous man named Ben Solomon was stationed in a US medical tent near the front lines. Ben was just a dentist who was there to replace a wounded surgeon, not expecting to fight. But everything changed when the Japanese launched the largest surprise banzai attack in the entire war, which is when hundreds or thousands of soldiers sprint at you through the front lines as a last-ditch effort. where almost immediately a Japanese soldier attacked Ben's medical tent, bayoneting a wounded US troop near the front. Ben was supposed to evacuate now, but without hesitation, he picked up a rifle and shot the attacker. And this was only the beginning. 2 more Japanese soldiers rushed the medical tent, where Ben would shoot both of them, but they continued flooding in. 4 more Japanese soldiers ran in through the front and crawled in from the sides, where Ben would shoot one of them, disarm the second, bayonet the third, and club the fourth with his rifle while a wounded soldier helped. At this point, Ben knew it would only get worse, his last recorded words being,
I'll hold them off until you get to safety.
As the rest of the tent evacuated, the dentist went straight out into the front lines alone, manning an abandoned machine gun, firing at the enemies coming towards the medical tent for hours, wave after wave. The next morning, they would discover Salomon's body slumped over the machine gun, but was surrounded by 98 fallen Japanese soldiers that he held off all by himself. Have you ever wondered why people hate the hyrax and call it the most boring animal on the planet, when in reality it's actually way cooler than you think? First reason, this tiny animal isn't even a rodent, but related to elephants, sharing a similar bone structure, especially in their skull and feet, and even have 2 tiny tusk-like fangs. But they get even crazier, as their feet are extremely advanced, having a soft rubbery padding and sweat glands that keep them moist at all times, allowing them to grip onto surfaces and climb extremely steep rocks almost like geckos. But they don't stop there. They can survive insane falls that kill most other animals because of their small and compact bodies, able to instantly squeeze into tiny rock crevices to escape predators, have one of the most complex communication systems of any animal, able to communicate danger, food, and more to help each other survive, are so organized they poop and pee in the same spot like a bathroom over hundreds or thousands of years, marking their territory, and can even harden into a rare substance called hyraceum, used in perfumes you might have, and are even mentioned in the Bible because of how good they are at surviving in difficult terrain despite being so small and vulnerable. But the most insane is that even with no real strength or speed, they've been around way longer than humans and outlived many species, surviving for around 30 to 40 million years, nowhere near as useless as people thought. This dinosaur was so terrifying to attack that even T-Rexes might have avoided it. Meet the Ankylosaurus. And once you see how this thing was built, you'll understand why it was so scary. Let's begin with their body. They were absolute tanks. The armor on their back wasn't just a shell like normal dinosaurs, but rather directly infused into their skin. So you couldn't just rip it off, as the dinosaur itself was the armor, nearly impossible to bite through. It doesn't stop there, as they were essentially a walking fortress, built extremely low to the ground, wide, weighed up to 8 tons, and believed to squat down low to the dirt when threatened, meaning it was almost impossible for any dinosaur to flip them or reach their vulnerable underside. Not only that, if you tried to attack anywhere else, its neck was armored, legs, tail, head had heavily enforced bones, and possibly even their eyelids were armored. But this is the least of your problems, as they had a massive muscular club tail, estimated to swing up to 30 miles per hour, hitting with enough force to potentially shatter bones. But the craziest of all, although it's possible a T-Rex could have hunted an Ankylosaurus, to this day, scientists still have never found any confirmed T-Rex bite marks on an Ankylosaurus fossil.
How did this stray dog become a US Army sergeant and one of the most respected war heroes in history? It all began when a stray dog wandered into a US military training camp in 1917. At first, he didn't bother anyone, just hanging around the camp, so the soldiers let him stay. And over time, he learned how to salute, march along with troops, respond to bugle calls, and even named him Stubby because of his short tail. But eventually, the soldiers had to deploy to Europe for World War I, intending on leaving him behind since animals weren't permitted on ships. But one of the soldiers named James Conroy built a deep connection with Stubby and decided to smuggle him on board, which ended up being one of the best decisions in history. But things got intense quickly. Stubby was immediately sent into the trenches as nothing more than moral support, where soon after his first few days, a brutal gas attack would injure Stubby. But this moment flipped a switch. After recovering, Stubby became highly sensitive to mustard and poison gas, warning soldiers before attacks even began, saving them multiple times. But Stubby kept learning more, becoming increasingly useful, eventually capable of detecting enemy artillery strikes before impact, spotted enemy movements at nighttime, bit and held onto a German spy mapping out Allied territory, exposing him to soldiers, helped locate wounded men after battles, barking until medics arrived, and got exploded by a grenade, but recovered and continued his services, where throughout Stubby's career, he not only survived 17 battles, became a celebrity, was promoted to sergeant and won multiple awards, but saved hundreds of lives. And in 1926, Stubby would die peacefully due to natural causes as a true war hero.
If you stand under this tree for shade, it can literally kill you. Meet the Manchineel tree, the world's most dangerous tree where nearly every single part of it can take you out. But how? Well, let's start with the fruit. These trees grow an apple-like fruit that you would think is harmless, looking and smelling delicious. But it only takes one bite, and you'll find out they're highly toxic, causing an extremely intense burning in your mouth and throat, along with stinging so painful it's described to feel like swallowing broken glass. But it only gets worse. Let's move on to the tree itself. Every single part of this tree, from the bark, branches, and even the leaves, have this white milky sap inside. Looks normal, but is so toxic that touching the tree anywhere can cause extremely painful skin irritation and severe blistering. And you don't even have to touch a tree, because if one catches fire, the smoke is almost like a toxic gas bomb, causing painful eye irritation, partial blindness, or respiratory problems. Now, worst of all, not only does it hold the Guinness World Record for being the world's most dangerous tree, but simply walking past one or standing under it can put you at risk, as all it takes is a little bit of rain, and the droplets can mix with the toxic sap, creating a poisonous shower dripping right onto you.
These are 4 animals you didn't know were secretly bullies. Firstly, octopus harass fish, known to go up to innocent fish passing by and randomly sucker punch them with their tentacles for no reason, or stealing other animals' food and just sitting on it without eating it. And in tanks are often seen jetting water into the face of one specific fish over and over on purpose. Next, parrots manipulate other animals for fun. Since they're so good at mimicking sounds, they'll often copy the warning or alarm calls of species they see just to make them panic, purposely making these sounds and watching the chaos break out, often causing a chain reaction of panic within the entire forest just for their enjoyment or attention. Next, squirrels. Whenever they see a squirrel they have a problem with, they'll pretend to bury food directly in front of this other squirrel, then running away and letting the squirrel think it found the jackpot, just to make it dig and waste time looking for absolutely nothing. But the biggest bully of all, the crow, known to do things like teaming up together and randomly dive bombing onto bigger birds, pecking their heads and bodies until they give up and fly away just to annoy them. They'll also swoop down and take your food while you're eating it, or yanking your tail to distract you as they heist all of your food, leaving you starving. I don't think you understand how rare your existence actually is, because you being alive right now is pretty much statistically impossible. To give you perspective, there's been over 100 billion people who ever lived on Earth, but this number is nothing compared to how many people could have ever lived. Because if you were to add up all the possible combinations of your DNA, the number would be so astronomically large you couldn't even read it. But somehow, out of nearly infinite versions of your DNA, you were born. Not only that, even including thousands of years of all of your ancestors' actions and DNA which led to you existing. If they didn't meet that specific person, make a specific life choice, or even make the tiniest decision ever, you would never exist today, increasing the chances of you being born to an unfathomable number, making your life one of the rarest things in the entire universe. What would happen if all humans disappeared from Earth? In the first 24 hours, lights all around the world would start to shut down as power grids fail, leaving everything in darkness. Then a few days in, subways would become flooded, and packs of wild animals along with plants will slowly take over cities. Then a few weeks in, all indoor pets and farm animals would begin to die without food or escape in the wild. About a month in, power plant water cooling would evaporate, causing meltdowns and disasters all around the world. Multiple months in, houses would start to rot due to weather, insects, and leaks. Then a year or 2 in, satellites would slowly start raining from the sky without proper maintenance. Over the next 25 to 50 years, nature would begin to reclaim everything, including cities. Animal populations would also increase, rebalancing many species. The air would also be much cleaner and easier to see with less pollution. Then over 200 years later, most buildings, bridges, and towers would start to deteriorate and disappear. Over 15,000 years later, the only evidence we existed would be made out of stone and small traces of metallic dust or pieces. A few million years later, even places like the pyramids and Mount Rushmore will be eroded completely. Then over 50 million years later, Earth will be completely back to normal with zero proof we ever existed.
How did this cat survive a sinking ship, then another, and another, every time it should have died? It all began during a World War II naval attack on a German battleship with a stray cat on board. A critical part of the ship being struck, sinking in the middle of the Atlantic, killing 2,000 soldiers, only leaving 115 survivors. But somehow, the cat survived, clinging onto a piece of wood rescued by British sailors. And this was only the beginning. They took the cat on their own ship with food, shelter, and even named him Oscar. Everything was perfect, until suddenly, the ship was torpedoed by a German U-boat. A massive explosion ripped through the ship, killing 150 soldiers instantly. But against all odds, Oscar survived, eventually being moved to a safer ship this time. Back to being a mascot with food and shelter, nothing could go wrong. Then out of nowhere, another German U-boat torpedoed the ship, ripping a hole through it. Everyone forced to quickly evacuate. But this time, Oscar wasn't spotted. The ship fully sinking with no sign of the cat. The rescuers searched the wreckage, finding nothing. But then in the distance, clinging onto a small piece of wood once again, was Oscar. According to the legend, earning the new name, Unsinkable Sam. What do you think is the dumbest way someone could possibly die?
Probably getting hit by a chariot. I would say falling off a cliff or something like that.
Yo, guys, hold on. Look at that.
Is that a donkey eating figs?
I've never seen that before.
Someone should bring him a plate.
Yeah, and a proper table. He's dining better than I am.
Does he have a reservation?
Reservation? Look at him, he owns the place.
Somebody get him a napkin.
Forget the napkin, bring him some pure wine to wash down those figs.
Dude, it's not that funny. Are you okay? Did he just die? Imagine you're crawling through a cave and suddenly you can't move at all. This actually happened in 2009. A 26-year-old cave explorer, John Edward Jones, was exploring the Nutty Putty Cave for a family trip, a popular cave system in Utah known for having some narrow tunnels, but wasn't considered deadly and actually a beginner-friendly cave for inexperienced climbers. Also, John had climbed here years ago as a child, so he was pretty confident. Climbing deeper, eventually John made it to the most popular area of the cave called the birth canal. Not too challenging for him, but this is where things took a turn. As John continued crawling, the tunnel started getting way tighter than he remembered. Because what John didn't realize, this wasn't the birth canal. He made a completely wrong turn into an unmapped area of the cave. Thinking it would get easier, he crawled even deeper. Becoming so challenging, he had to suck in air to squeeze through. Continuing to go down further again, hoping to find a turnaround spot, when out of nowhere, a dead end. Now entirely unable to move. Pinned against the rocks so tight, he couldn't move his arms or take deep breaths. Upside down with gravity slowly crushing his body and locking him further in place. His brother found him, tried helping, but had no luck. Called rescuers who tried assisting him, breaking rocks, and even a pulley system. But nothing they did was working. Spending a full 25 hours in this nightmare, until the pressure from being upside down caused John's body to give out. Where to this day, John is still there, forever sealing off the cave as his tomb. Did you know that emerald wasps are terrifying mind controllers and can hijack cockroaches' brains to walk to their own death? It all begins when an emerald wasp smells and spots a cockroach, tracking onto its movements and positioning itself for an ambush. Once you're in the perfect spot, it'll quickly fly in before you could even react, landing onto your body and stinging you in two precise areas. First into your thorax, which paralyzes your front legs, then specifically stinging you in the part of your brain that controls your instincts to escape. And it only gets worse from here, as the cockroach now is almost in a zombie-like state, completely passive and no longer resisting. The wasp could easily kill you here, but it has a far darker plan for you, grabbing you by the antenna like a leash and walking you away without control, dragging you all the way into a burrow it's specifically designed for your death. Once inside, it'll let go and lay a singular egg on you, walking out and sealing the burrow shut, leaving you with no escape. And eventually the egg hatches a larvae which slowly eats you over the span of multiple days. Not only still alive, but not even realizing what's happening. Over time, the larvae burrows deeper, feeding on your insides and hollowing out your body as it grows, all until you eventually die. And after a few weeks, a fully grown wasp will rip its way out of your body, starting the cycle all over again. These are 4 animals that have the most brutal start to life after birth. First off, sea turtles. You hatch from an egg and are immediately thrown into chaos, needing to crawl over 100 feet through scorching hot sand trying to get to the water before getting eaten alive. Where seagulls and tons of other predators will attack and eat you before you even have a chance at life, having a 1 in 1,000 odds of survival. Even more brutal, the praying mantis. As soon as you're born, you crawl out of an egg case surrounded by hundreds of other baby mantis, entering a hardening stage, frozen in place unable to move
move alongside hundreds of your starving siblings, when suddenly, after an hour of waiting, all of your bodies will be ready at once, putting you in the middle of a free-for-all war, eating each other alive and fighting for food, where only about 10 or 20 will survive. Even worse, the Galapagos marine iguana. As soon as you hatch, you crawl from the ground and realize that you're born on a snake-infested island, where dozens of racer snakes will instantly begin to chase you at full speed just after surfacing, needing to immediately learn how to run and survive over 100 feet to safety, often getting bit and fighting off piles of snakes ambushing you out of nowhere, having a 1 in 20 chance of survival. But worst of all, the wildebeest. You're born directly in the middle of an active herd and are surrounded by predators, where you literally have to learn how to run and stand within only 5 to 10 minutes. And if you can't figure out how to run in that short time period, your life is already over, where you'll usually get trampled and left behind with no protection, being eaten alive by predators. How did this Filipino fisherman accidentally find one of the rarest objects on Earth? It all started back in 2006 while the man was on his normal boat route when suddenly he was surrounded by a massive storm. In a panic, he tried to sail away, but his anchor was stuck on something preventing him from leaving. Taking matter into his own hands, he dove down to his anchor and tried moving the object himself. But the object he found was much different than he could ever imagine. It was a giant, shiny, weird-looking white rock. And at first, he thought nothing of it, carrying it back to his boat because he thought it looked cool, sailing back home and stuffing the rock under his bed, completely unaware of what he just found. Fast forwarding an entire 10 whole years later, his house caught on fire, burning down half of his house, forcing him to move. But while he was taking out everything that survived, he rediscovered the giant white rock, finally deciding to bring it to a local tourist office, hoping they knew what it was. But when he walked inside and revealed it to them, it left everyone speechless. The object he found wasn't a rock, but one of the world's largest pearls ever discovered in human history, worth over $100 million. Have you ever wondered why everyone is horrified of the North Sentinel Island and is impossible for you to enter without being killed? Why is this? Well, on this remote island in the Bay of Bengal lives a dangerous indigenous tribe called the North Sentinelese, who've been isolated on this island for 60,000 years with almost zero contact with other humans. Their language is completely unknown, and their culture is still a mystery, where to this day no one knows how or why they got there. But how are they dangerous? Well, they're known to be extremely violent towards outsiders, attacking anyone that goes near the island, doing things like shooting at boats and aircrafts passing by without any warning, one time shooting a rescue helicopter trying to help them after a tsunami, and even reportedly shot at a National Geographic film crew, hitting the director in the leg. But much worse, many people died trying to visit them. In 2018, a religious missionary attempted to preach to them, but moments later, his body was seen being dragged along the beach. And in 2006, 2 fishermen docked on the islands, not realizing the danger, being ambushed, and were never seen again. And despite the technology and power we have today, we still cannot go near the island, because one simple visit from us could spread diseases their bodies can't handle, wiping out hundreds of innocent people who live there. So it's best to just leave them alone. How did these 3 regular guys escape from the most secure prison in the world? Their first mission was to somehow get through 8-inch thick concrete walls within their cells, coming up with the idea to smuggle items like cafeteria spoons, toothbrushes, and even a vacuum motor to help them dig. And every single night, these 3 guys would get to work slowly scraping away at the wall, sometimes even digging in the middle of the day when something called music hour took place, covering the sound of them digging. Then to hide their tracks, they would cover the hole up with a piece of cardboard painted to match the color of the wall, or sometimes even random objects. Now fast forwarding about 6 months of straight digging, they finally made it through the wall, which led to a utility corridor. But it wasn't over yet, because they still needed the right materials to actually escape, as Alcatraz was one of the most secure prisons in the world at the time. So the next step to their plan was to secretly load items into the wall every day, piece by piece. Amazingly, stealing over 50 raincoats, loads of rubber and wood, and tons of random scrap, all without getting noticed, allowing them to make life vests, paddles, and even an entire boat to help them cross the dangerous waters surrounding Alcatraz. And on the night of June 11th, 1962, after about half a year of preparation, they were finally ready. First, leaving fake human heads in each of their beds made out of paper, soap, and real human hair. All 3 of the men then crawled through each of their holes at the same time, closing it off behind them one last time. Meeting up in the corridor, each of them grabbed some materials and started scaling the walls, crawling through a bunch of pipes and vents, trying not to make any noise, eventually making it to the top where they squeezed through one final vent, making it to the roof. Next, they went to the side of the prison and held onto a drain pipe and slid all the way down onto the ground, then carefully climbing over a giant wall surrounding the prison and snuck over to the shore. Quickly, before any guard noticed them, they threw down the raft, hopped in, and started rowing away from the most secure prison in the world. Or did they? Because from this point on, the three men named Frank, John, and Clarence were never seen again, neither dead or alive. Leaving one of the biggest unanswered questions in history: did they successfully escape, or did they drown in the water surrounding Alcatraz?
Imagine you walked outside and saw dozens of your neighbors violently dancing until their feet bled and collapsed unconscious. This actually happened in 1518 in a town called Strasbourg. All starting with this woman right here named Frau Troffea, one day randomly walking outside of her house and dancing in the streets. At first, people thought nothing of it. Maybe she just liked dancing or was a little bit crazy. But this is where things got weird. As hours passed, she just didn't stop, looking completely exhausted, drenched in sweat, and somehow kept moving all throughout day and night. And it only got worse, because people strangely started joining her, one by one, dancing in this weird trance-like state. Still, it was only a few people, so no one too concerned yet. But as days passed, not only weren't they stopping, but people kept joining in, at one point reaching dozens of people. Now the town was worried, hoping they would just eventually stop on their own. But no. Their feet became bloody and bruised, bodies on the brink of collapsing. People tried dragging them away, holding them still, giving them food and water, taking them to church, and even built a stage with music playing to hopefully dance the sickness out. But nothing they tried was working, only stopping unless they physically collapsed. Some even reportedly dying from exhaustion, where this would go on for multiple months, starting in July, slowly fading out around early September, with 400 infected people in total. Whether it was mass hysteria, poisoning, or mental illness, to this day we still don't know the exact reason for the dancing plague. These are the horrifying steps you would face if you got lost in the Appalachian Mountains. Firstly, you won't even realize you're lost. It only takes one wrong turn off trail that looks like the right direction, and the forest can start to repeat itself every direction you turn, realizing you're lost far too late, which is why many have disappeared in these seemingly calm mountains. But it only gets worse from here, as the weather can flip almost instantly. Due to the high elevation of the mountains, clear skies can turn foggy in just minutes, making it easy to get lost even with experience. Then if you think screaming for help will save you, the trees and bushes will work against you, acting like a barrier, muffling screams or sounds you make, nearly impossible for people to hear you at a distance. Or if you want to call for help and open up a GPS, signal is unable to reach you here, leaving you on your own. Even creepier, these mountains are over 400 million years old, older than mammals, dinosaurs, and trees. Not meant for humans like you, which you'll realize after seeing abandoned towns, mines, and old roads with no signs of life, just silence, causing your brain to start playing tricks on you. Many hikers report hearing voices, whistling, and a weird presence following them in this isolation, repeating all of this over and over as your body gets weaker, until eventually there's no trace you were ever here at all. Did you know about this group of people who evolved to live in the ocean and can hold their breath underwater up to 10 times longer than you? Meet the Badge Out people, where everything from their food to social life revolves around water. But how does this make them evolve? Well, let's start with their living spaces. Stilt houses across Southeast Asia, sometimes miles away from land. Living in these massive water villages with no streets or backyards, just water, forcing them to swim as young as age 3, which is essential because their main way of survival here is diving, spending up to 60% of their working day underwater, not only needing to hunt their food at extreme depths as low as 100 feet without any scuba gear, but need to hold their breath for long amounts of time and withstand extreme pressure that commonly bursts their eardrums with nothing but goggles and a spear. But still, how does this change their bodies? Well, they've been living exactly like this for over 1,000 years now, and over time through generations of swimming in the ocean, natural selection has increased the size of their spleens by roughly 50% compared to people on lands nearby, meaning they're born with the ability to hold their breath around 5 minutes on average, with a max record of 13 minutes underwater. How did this farmer become the most feared sniper in history and earn the nickname White Death after slaying hundreds of people? It all started during the Winter War in 1939, where a soon-to-be deadly man named Simo served as a sniper for the Finnish army. But he wasn't like the rest of the snipers and was so good at hiding he literally caused paranoia in the entire Soviet army. But how? First off, he never stayed in place or in a sniper nest. Instead, he lurked in the forest by himself, burrowing himself under the snow in a white camouflage suit, making him practically invisible.
invisible, and every time he took out a few targets, he would move. He would also snipe without a scope, preventing glints, and was an experienced hunter knowing all the best spots. Becoming such a threat, the Soviets began sending entire artillery barrages near random areas in the woods hoping to hit him, and even had an entire sniper force specifically looking for him, but they still had no luck, continuing to take out hundreds of more soldiers, making the Soviets terrified of the woods. Until one day, a Soviet finally spotted him, taking an explosive round to the jaw, being pulled out of the war and somehow still making a full recovery, with a total of 500 confirmed fatalities. How did this regular guy pull off the most elaborate money heist known in history? It all started when this mysterious man handed in his boarding ticket for Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. Going by the fake name of Dan Cooper, wearing a clean black suit and holding a briefcase, confidently walking onto the plane without any suspicions. And when Flight 305 took off, everything seemed completely normal at first, but only around 10 minutes later into the flight, everyone's lives were about to change. The seemingly normal man called over a flight attendant, calmly handing her a note and said the words, "Miss, you better look at that note. I have a bomb." At first, she thought he was joking because of how calm he was, until she opened up the note, which read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me." The flight attendant stayed quiet and sat down next to him, where Cooper pulled up his briefcase and cracked it open, revealing what looked like a bomb. Whispering to the flight attendant, demanding he wants $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle. With everyone's life in her hands, she got straight to work, running over to the pilots and telling them to get everything he requested immediately. The pilots quickly informed the FBI, telling them to gather everything at the airport. And eventually, after circling around the airport for an entire 2 hours waiting for the items, they finally landed. The FBI then dropped everything Cooper needed on the stairs leading up to the plane, even convincing them to fill the plane back up with a fuel truck. Cooper was satisfied, letting all 36 passengers off the plane, except for the pilots and the flight attendants. Because now the second stage to his plan began, forcing the crew to stay inside the cockpit and fly to Mexico City. And as the horrified crew stood in the cockpit waiting to see his next step, the unthinkable happened. About 30 minutes into the flight, pressure warnings and emergency lights flashed on. And at first, the crew was scared and confused, but quickly figured out what Cooper's next plan was. He figured out how to open the back stairs to the plane, held onto everything, and amazingly jumped from the back, parachuting out with nothing but a suit and a money bag into the rainy pitch-black darkness of the night. And from this point on, the only thing left behind from Cooper was some extra money found in the forest and a single tie from his suit, where to this day the mysterious man named Dan Cooper was still never found. These are 4 animals with the most depressing lives. First is a cicada. You hatch from an egg, fall into the dirt, and dig straight down. With no wings or eyes, you wait underground for 13 to 17 years doing nothing but eating and growing. And after all of this waiting, they dig to the surface, live for about 3 weeks, and die. Next is the immortal jellyfish. You aimlessly float around the ocean, and when you get sick, injured, or old, you don't die. Instead, you sink to the bottom of the ocean, turn into a blob, and reset back into a baby, stuck in an infinite loop of doing nothing, where it only ends if you get mangled alive by a fish or a crab. But even worse is a male redback spider, where your only purpose in life is to sacrifice yourself, as female redbacks are 8 times bigger than the males, and during mating they only breed for a few seconds, then diving into the female's mouth and getting brutally eaten alive to help fertilize her eggs. Then lastly, the Greenland shark. You're born in total darkness and freezing cold Arctic water and can only swim slower than humans walk, where your daily routine is swimming alone in the dark, eating remains of dead animals, and eventually going blind from parasites in your eyes, doing this again and again for a lifespan of over 400 years. Did you know that lemurs consume the world's most lethal toxin just so they can get high? Their first step is finding a millipede, picking it up and biting into it while flailing it around in their jaws. Because millipedes release a deadly poison known as cyanide, which coats the inside of their mouth. Spitting out the millipede, the lemur begins uncontrollably salivating due to the toxins. Then using their hands, they catch the saliva mixed with cyanide and rub it all over their body. Initially, they do this to repel mosquitoes and bugs, but eventually they start enjoying this process a little too much, becoming addicted to the side effects of cyanide, stuck in a loop doing this process over and over again until they fall into a trance-like state, where they've been seen standing completely frozen in place, zoning out, feeling at peace, ignoring threats and being less alert, or most of the times just passing out. Did you know there was a cat that actually worked for the CIA? In the 1960s during the Cold War, the CIA needed a way to spy on the Soviets in a public space without raising suspicion, coming up with the idea to use a cat to listen in on the Soviets. To do this, they attached a tiny microphone inside of the cat's ear, then running a wire through the inside of the cat's body into its tail where the transmitter was located, and even trained it to walk by near the correct people. And after 5 years of development and $20 million spent, it was time to put this cat to work, officially naming the operation Acoustic Kitty. During midday Washington, D.C., the first mission took place, where two Soviets were having a conversation. The CIA would then drop off the cat, letting it casually walk over to the targets to listen in. But as the cat made its way over, everything would go horribly wrong. The cat tried crossing the street, where a taxi would unfortunately run her over, failing its first ever mission. How did this singular pigeon save over 190 people's lives? It all started during World War I, where the US Army was surrounded by the Germans and accidentally getting bombed by their own artillery since communications were down. With no way to escape, their only hope was to risk using carrier pigeons trained to deliver messages, attaching a note begging to stop the artillery, and sending out the first few pigeons praying they made it. But the Germans knew their tactics, shooting any pigeon they saw out of the air, where every single one of the pigeons died so far, all coming down to one final pigeon named Shirami, attaching the message and releasing him, flying into the battlefield with no problems at first, until Shirami was shot in the chest and fell from the sky. The artillery continued taking out hundreds of men, down to the last 200 soldiers out of 500. They thought it was all over and lost all of their hope, when suddenly everything fell silent. The artillery had stopped, because what they didn't know is Shirami survived, flying over 25 miles through enemy fire with a bullet wound and a missing leg after getting shot again, making it to headquarters and successfully delivering the message, saving their lives. Did you know that bees can ruin their entire life if they're ever caught being drunk? Because when bees hunt for nectar, there's a chance they might accidentally drink something called fermented nectar, which is when nectar sits out for too long, turning the sugar into ethanol, a form of alcohol. And when bees unknowingly consume too much, it can make them feel extremely drunk, causing the bee to fly into things, be aggressive, forget their job, or sometimes entirely stop flying and stand still. But in many instances, the bee is still capable of finding its way back to the hive. But this is where the problems begin, because every hive has guard bees standing by the entrance looking out for any threats, constantly watching and smelling the bees, and if they notice any of them acting drunk or smelling like alcohol, they will make them face a horrifying reality. The guards will do one of two things after they spot a drunk bee: either banning you from the hive forever, forcing you to fly away and live on your own, or they will mercilessly attack you, ganging up around the bee and repeatedly stinging it and having all of their limbs ripped off, then dragging their body out of the hive and ditching it forever.
Penguins are a lot darker than you thought, and nowhere near as innocent as they seem. But why? Firstly, penguins can get extremely violent. Despite looking harmless, many male penguin species have been observed brutally fighting each other over things like territory, eggs, or mating partners. So bad, they sometimes leave each other critically injured or even dead, and they only get more disturbing, as penguins are chronic thieves, often spotted stealing rocks from other penguins' nests that took days to build, leaving the eggs without protection to help their own. Or even crazier, penguin prostitution can take place for the Adelie species. Valuing rocks so much is essentially a form of currency, where female penguins might mate with males for an exchange of some rocks. And somehow it gets worse, as emperor and king penguins are known to kidnap babies. Usually after losing theirs, instincts can make them steal and raise a random chick as their own. Or sometimes, penguins might even abandon their own child. Although for survival, they're known to leave the weakest chick behind to die, only helping the healthier one. And let's say the weaker chick does survive, well, they're still known to get bullied by stronger ones, being pushed and hit around. Then even if you are a healthier chick, you're not safe from deadly things like trampling, freezing, starvation, or being hunted. But worst of all, during mating season, specifically male Adelie penguins can get so aggressive that they've been seen violently forcing females to mate, or sometimes attempting to mate with dead penguins. 8 weird laws you'd be forced to follow living in the Roman Empire. Firstly, if you hated someone and wanted to write a mean song or poem about them, it was believed damaging someone's honor or image like this was equivalent to physically attacking them, executing you. Next, if a thief broke into your house, you weren't allowed to kill them, only able to defend yourself if they showed a weapon or if it took place during nighttime. If you were caught singing next to your neighbor's crops suspiciously, Romans thought you were using a curse to weaken your neighbor's crops and make your own grow faster, treating it like real theft, punishing you. But it gets crazier. If your favorite color to wear is purple, it was reserved for high-ranking people and elites only, taking your clothes and finding you. Maybe you're a woman married to a man. Well, he would legally own you if you stayed with him for a year straight. If you were struck by lightning, you weren't allowed to have a proper funeral. Believe their god Jupiter himself had claimed you, burying you right where you fell. Then even if you did have a funeral, too much loud crying or extreme emotion was seen as chaotic and a bad look for the state, shutting down your funeral. But worst of all, if you had a child with any extreme deformities, parents were legally allowed to abandon their child to die.
Top 3 most devious torture methods in history. First is something called keel hauling, where sailors who were thieves, cowards, or even slept on duty were tied with a rope on both ends of their body, throwing them off the side of the ship and continuously dragging them under the keel, where barnacles would slowly rip apart at their skin, doing this over and over until you either drown or come back up as mush. Next method was something called the brazen bull. It was a Greek torture device that would lock criminals inside of a hollow bowl made out of bronze. It was so small inside you were barely able to sit up, then lighting a large or sometimes even small fire under the bowl, cooking you alive for several minutes or up to an hour. The Greeks even designed it with a horn to make your screams sound like a bull to entertain the public as they watched. Now the last and worst torture method of all, used by a prince named Vlad the Impaler. They would take enemy soldiers or criminals, forcing them to sit down on the end of a 15 to 30 foot long spike, impaling their but not all the way down, because instead they would let gravity slowly impale you over the span of multiple days. Sometimes they even doled the spike for fun, just so you can survive in pain longer while the public gradually watches you perish. How did this man become the luckiest known person to ever exist? His name was Frane Selak, and all of his luck began in 1962, where during a train ride it suddenly derailed and plunged into an icy cold river. 17 people died, but somehow Frane escaped with only a broken arm and hypothermia. Then 1 year later, he got on his first ever plane ride, where mid-flight the door entirely ripped off the plane, sucking him and 19 other passengers off the aircraft. Everyone else died, except for Frane, who landed in a haystack. Next in 1966, he took a bus that crashed into a river. 4 people died, but once again, Frane survived. Then in 1970, his car spontaneously caught on fire. Frane quickly dove out of the car, where the fuel tank exploded just after. Then 3 years later, the same exact thing happened again, barely escaping after his car caught on fire and exploded. Next in 1995, he got hit by a bus, but survived with no injuries. Then in 1996, while driving on a mountain road, he swerved to avoid a truck, launching off the side of a 300-foot cliff, but amazingly ejected from the car, catching onto a tree mid-air while the car exploded beneath him, surviving once again. Then to top it all off, in 2003, Frane bought a lottery ticket and won the $1 million jackpot, even deciding to give away most of the money.
Did you know about this frog that basically freezes itself to death on purpose? It all begins in winter, where the species called the wood frog will, instead of protecting itself from the cold like normal animals, hide right on the surface, not underground, strangely letting itself freeze in the extreme temperature. Their body turns frozen solid, ice literally forming in their veins. Breathing and heartbeats stop, and becomes completely unresponsive. Any other animal would be dead at this point, but this frog has different plans. Inside its body, a surge of glucose floods its system, acting like a natural antifreeze, protecting its cells from dying, allowing it to stay frozen, essentially dead, for 7 to 8 months. And once winter is over, it simply thaws out, waking up like nothing happened.
You have to know about this. A shark is the only fish that can blink with both eyes. An ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain. A cat has 32 muscles in each ear, and it's impossible for a pig to ever look up at the sky. Have a great day.
Did you know the word okay is the most spoken word in the world? But what does okay really mean, and where did it come from? See, it actually started as a joke. Back in the 1800s in Boston, they had a little trend of making funny abbreviations from intentionally misspelling words. For example, instead of saying no-go, they'd misspell it as no-go, and they abbreviated that to KG. So here's where okay came from. Instead of answering a question with yes or true, they said all correct. But they took this joke to the next level. Instead of writing all correct, they wrote down all correct, and they abbreviated this to OK. And somehow this joke just stuck. Politicians started using it, newspapers started printing it, and everyone started using the word okay. There was also a president as well with the nickname Old Kinderhook, and there are theories that state that he loved to use it because those were his name abbreviations. So every time you use the word okay, you're basically using a meme from the 19th century. It's basically their 6-7. Sorry, I'm a grown man. Did you know that humans used to have tails? But there's something weird as to why we don't have them anymore. the hell? See, it all started millions of years ago when our ancestors had full tails. And our studies show that they most likely needed it to balance while climbing trees and jumping across. But then something changed. See, there's a tiny piece in your DNA from your own genetic code that inserted itself into the gene, and it's called TBXT. This was involved with growing the tail while you were still in the womb. And this genetic code interfered with people's sizes, length of their tails, and eventually there was no more tail. And that's why we're just left without tailbone. But there's still one part that makes no sense. We don't fully know why losing our tails was beneficial for evolution. There's no clear advantage to that. So all in all, we're all furries. The world might shut down again. A deadly virus outbreak is currently happening in India, and it's called Nipah. The fatality rate is 40 to 75%. And here's the scary part. There is no treatment or cure for it yet. And Nipah is starting to get the world's attention. So much so that countries like Thailand, Nepal, and Taiwan have brought back screening at their airports so that the virus doesn't spread to other countries. And here's what happens if you get the virus. It starts off with the usual, the fever, the headache, muscle pain, and then it can hit the lungs and the brain as well. And by the way, this virus isn't new. Nipah was first discovered in Malaysia in 1998, and it 105 people. But don't be too afraid because there are no confirmed cases anywhere outside of India. So India, the world is counting on you to stop this one early. Please. If you have a pet cat, chances are extremely high that they're controlling you. Originally, cats were never trained by humans like dogs were. And thousands of years ago, they basically domesticated themselves by basically hanging around with humans. And why did they? Well, it's simple. We were where the food was. Cats would pull up and say, yo, where the loot at? And we'd provide them the loot because they're cute and fluffy. Oh. Over time, things changed. Cats figured out the perfect formula to trick humans. Now stay with me. Have you ever noticed that cats barely ever meow at each other? They communicate a different way. But to humans, they do it constantly. This is because through thousands of years, they've learned that this works. They meow to get more attention, or food, or even care. Now over time, there are other things like slow blinking, head bumps, or even rolling around. Whether you notice it or not, they're doing all of that to get something from you. I mean, look how cute they are. So you still think your cat is your pet? Nah. You're their pet. Oh, I'll feed you. Did you know you've never actually felt wet in your entire life? Yeah, it turns out your brain has just been guessing the feeling of what wet feels like. And this is because us humans don't have wet receptors in our skin. So then how do we know if something's wet? See, this happens when your brain combines other signals, which are mostly temperature and touch. So when something cold hits your skin, your brain thinks, oh, that's probably water. Now it gets crazier because there were studies done about this. There were two objects placed on a table. Moisture levels of these objects were the same, but the participants felt that the colder object felt more wet, and the warmer object felt more dry. Here's something that you can do to trick your brain into feeling wet. Try putting on latex gloves and put your hand into water and then take it out. It will still feel wet, but how? Water doesn't even touch your hand. Weird, right? Ah! Did you know earwax is actually good for you? You might think that earwax is dirty, but it's not dirt. It's what keeps the dirt out. See, earwax is pretty much like a shield for your ears. It blocks dust, debris, bugs. Your body literally creates earwax to keep your ears healthy. And using things like cotton swabs make it worse. You're basically pushing the earwax deeper in your ear by simply using the cotton swabs outside your ear canal. Don't insert objects in there. And for most people, your ears pretty much clean themselves naturally. So yeah, your ears don't need help. Did you know Jack Black, the guy from Minecraft, was born on a day people would never forget? Not entirely because of his birth, but his mom was solving a problem that would eventually save lives. August 28th, 1969, Judith Love Cohen, Jack's mom, went into labor. See, Judith was an aerospace engineer at NASA. She rushed inside, took a computer printout of a very serious problem that she and her team was working on. Even while giving birth, she was thinking about. And then later on that day, she called her boss. First thing she said to her boss was, I solved the problem. Oh, and Jack Black was born as well. It's what's needed for the abort guidance system. Basically, a backup that could save astronauts if the main navigation failed. Now lock in, because a few months later, Apollo 13 launched and headed straight for the moon. But just 2 days in, an oxygen tank module failed, so they had to return back to Earth. But when they tried to, their main navigation system also failed. Now that backup system that Jack Black's mom had fixed while giving birth worked, and it guided the astronauts safely back down to Earth. She's done more in that one day than I have ever in my life. I'm gonna play a sound for you, and can you tell me what word you hear?
Laurel.
Was it Yanni or Laurel? I'll play it again.
Laurel.
And remember the word, because some people can hear Yanni and other people Laurel. Don't believe me? Show this video to someone else. Now before I get into what the actual word is, let's explore why people hear two different sounds. See, this audio clip plays both in high frequencies and low frequencies at the same time. It's a distorted clip, like two words were stacked together. So if your brain is focused on high pitched sounds, you hear Yanni. But if it leans towards lower pitched sounds, you hear Laurel. And it gets even weirder. Your speakers or headphones can change the way you hear the sound based on the frequency that they're boosting. So what is this audio actually saying? Well, the real intended word is Laurel. So yeah, the lesson here is you can never trust your ears and your brain sometimes. Me, I trust my heart. If you lived as a samurai, your reputation mattered more than your life. In feudal Japan, samurai practiced seppuku, which is the act of taking a sword and stabbing it into your own stomach to erase shame from yourself and your family. Now, let me explain. Under Bushido, honor wasn't just personal, it was generational. If you did something bad, you could disgrace your entire family and the generations to come. So if a samurai was to lose a battle, get captured, or failed his lord, he would have to choose death over dishonor. And if he refused, his family would lose their income, their land, and the act of seppuku reduces the punishment, protecting their family and future generations from ruin. The ritual itself was pretty formal as well. They had witnesses, sometimes a final poem as well, and stood behind him would be a trusted second samurai to end his suffering in a single strike. If the world stopped spinning for even 1 second, we'd be cooked. See, right now, the Earth is spinning at 1,600 kilometers per hour. And we just don't notice because everything else is moving as well. But if Earth suddenly stopped spinning, your body would get flung at that crazy speed. Same with cars, buildings, and even the ocean water. But somehow, that's not even the weirdest part. If Earth completely stopped spinning and somehow we're still alive, one full day would last an entire year. And that means about 6 months of daytime and 6 months of nighttime. There was a man who could speak to elephants, and when he passed away, they came back for him. Meet Lawrence Anthony. He's a conservationist who ran Tula Tula Reserve. And in 1999, there was a herd of elephants that were going to be eliminated because they were just too dangerous. And he didn't want that, so he pretty much brought them in, spent a lot of time with them, and no one thought he could handle them. He gained their trust. And these elephants went from violent and untamable to seeing him as his family. And when Lawrence Anthony passed away in 2012, the herd of elephants sensed something was off. They immediately marched all the way to his main house. And they just stood there quietly, as if they were paying their respects to him. But the craziest part is they returned the same day next year and the year after to do the exact same thing. And to this day, no one knows exactly how the elephants knew. Did you know there was once a plague that made people dance uncontrollably? And it was called the Dancing Plague of 1518. It started in the city of France, an area part of the Roman Empire. A woman named Frau Trophaea stepped out on the street and she started dancing. Not for fun, but she just couldn't stop. And she danced and danced until she collapsed. Then she got back up and started dancing again. And this went on for days. And in a month's time, as many as 40 people were dancing with her as well. And within a month, as many as 400 people started dancing with her on the streets. See, at this point, a few people have already danced too, and the whole dancing situation didn't improve until 2 months later. So, what happened? Well, people were blaming demonic possessions, and some even blamed contaminated bread. But modern historian John Waller believed that it was more of a psychogenic illness. At that time, the city was facing famine, extreme stress, and disease, which all resulted in people just going crazy. Did you know if you tried to fake your own death, it would be next to impossible? But the chances are never zero. See, there's an actual legitimate playbook that exists, and if you wanted to pull this off, well, I'll teach you. Step 1 of this playbook, you have to stage a believable accident. Has to be dramatic, like this, or like this, or like this. Once you've done that, it's time for step 2. You've got to disappear. Now, to disappear, you need a lot of cash. So you take out all of your money. If you've got $5,000, you're cooked. You're gonna need $50,000. But even withdrawing from an ATM is suspicious. You have to be collecting cash throughout the years because credit cards and withdrawing from the bank leaves a paper trail. And you don't want to be tracked. Once you've done that, it's time for step 3, the most important step of all. You have to cut off every single person from your entire life. Get rid of your phone, forget all your contacts, because if something happened to you, investigators will watch them the closest. And that's why most people fail, because the hardest part isn't fooling the police. It's never contacting the people that you love ever again. So yeah, good luck. Don't try this at home. Let me ask you a question. This dress here, is it blue, black, or white, gold? See, this photo went viral 10 years ago. And the reason why is because everyone was fighting over what color it is. If you show someone this photo and ask them what color is this dress, they might actually see a different color than you. And that's because our brain sees this image differently. Now remember the color you see this dress in, because the true answer will be revealed in just a second. Let's get back to why people see this dress differently. It's because whenever your brain sees an image, it's constantly trying to guess what the lighting it's under. And that's the problem. This photo completely confuses that system in your brain. So if you guess this dress was white and gold, your brain assumed that it was under bluish light, which removes the blue tint. And if you see it as blue and black, your brain assumed it was under warm light. The lighting in this picture is super unclear. So everyone's brain starts making guesses automatically. And if you look away and look back, the color of the dress might change. Now the actual dress color is blue and black. How's it look on me?
That 40-day King of Lousy Camel Beauty Contest prize money exceeded $66 million. Apparently the camel's neck should be straight, the hump large, the hair should be soft, the lips large and the cheeks wide. Have a fabulous day.
Every year, our moon moves further and further away from us. And eventually one day, the moon will look like the size of a coin in our sky. And there's nothing we can do about it. You see, every single year, the moon drifts 3.8 centimeters further away from Earth. And how do we know this? Well, Apollo astronauts, when they landed on the moon, left mirrors. And we pretty much use lasers to bounce off the mirrors to measure the exact distance. Not these lasers. These lasers. But why is the moon moving further away? It all comes down to our ocean tides. The moon's gravity pulls on Earth's oceans, creating tidal bulges. Stay with me, okay? Earth spins faster than the moon orbiting Earth, so these bulges get dragged ahead of the moon. Just a little bit, but this tiny difference changes everything. This has been happening for billions of years. When the moon first formed, it was way closer to Earth. Now some simulations show that way back then, Earth spun so fast that one single day was about 4 hours. So yeah, technically the moon's not leaving us, we're pushing it away. Did you know the deadliest disease in human history actually never disappeared, and it's still infecting people today? The bubonic plague. Now at first, it starts off like a fever. It feels like a normal fever, except almost immediately your lymph nodes become black and very, very painful. When the bubonic plague first happened, people didn't even last 24 hours and some only up to 2 to 5 days. And unfortunately, there was never a cure. This disease was spread from rats or fleas. Now, it had another name, the Black Death. Because it was so infectious, entire households would be in 1 week. Now, for all we know, this disease started in the 1300s, and in just a few years, 30 to 50% of Europe was wiped. Now, eventually, a cure was found 600 years later. Crazy thing is, the bubonic plague is still here today. And nowadays, we have the antibiotics to fight it if you take it early. Did you know glass is made out of sand? Literally. See, most sand is made out of something called silicon dioxide. And if you heat up the sand to about 1,700 degrees Celsius or 3,092 Fahrenheit, it melts into glowing liquid. Sounds fire, right? But now this is where the magic happens. When the molten sand cools down, the atoms lock into a weird and literally random structure. And this is called amorphous solid. Now stay with me because this is what becomes glass. It's clear and smooth. However, the modern glass that we use now is different. It's not just melted sand anymore. In factories, they mix sand, recycled glass, soda ash, and limestone, and they pretty much heat up the whole thing in these massive furnaces here. This stuff here is also used for bottles and jars. But the real question is, whose idea was it to heat up a bunch of sand? That's pretty crazy. What if Antarctica just melted? See, this place here holds 90% of Earth's ice, and if it just disappeared, the first thing that would happen is billions of people would have to move inland. And that's because sea levels will rise by 70 meters. Tons of major cities like London, Shanghai, Mumbai, and New York would be underwater or heavily reshaped. And our oceans, they'll change forever because in Antarctica, it's fresh water. And if it all melted, our oceans won't be salty anymore. That's pretty good. But what's not pretty good is this affects the water's current, which would affect the weather all across the world. But here's something most people don't know. Antarctica isn't just ice. Underneath is rock. All this ice disappeared, it'd be mountains and valleys. And the worst part is Earth will get way, way hotter. And that's gonna be a problem for the future us. Everyone hates mosquitoes, but what if they just disappeared? Yes. See, mosquitoes are known for spreading diseases like malaria and other dirty stuff. And they make millions of people sick every year. So first things first, we're gonna get less sick and less itchy. But it gets even better. You can literally go outside and stand there without becoming an all-you-can-eat buffet. But here's why we haven't wiped them out. Mosquitoes are also food. They get eaten by fish, frogs, birds, bats, spiders, you name it. And some bird species rely heavily on mosquitoes and they would go extinct without them. And unfortunately, mosquitoes are more important than you think. They can help pollinate plants like drinking the nectar. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Did you know your brain lies to you? There was once a study done where participants were shown fake images of their childhood, and the results were interesting. Half the participants remembered the childhood event that never happened. Now, stay with me. This ties closely in with the Mandela effect, where you and millions of other people remember the exact same thing, like this emoji here. Have you used it before? doesn't exist. Now, false memories is your brain lying to you. Now, the scary thing is false memories happen because memories are not concrete recordings like this video here. You can watch this video, you can like this video as well. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds the memory, and it's merely just filling in the missing details. So the next time you try to recall a memory, are you remembering it or rebuilding it, or is it false? We can test that. Did my shirt change this video? Have you ever wondered why police officers are related to donuts? Like, out of all the foods in the world, why did that become the stereotype? To answer this question, I'm taking you back to the 1940s and 50s. You may think police officers related to donuts is a joke, but it wasn't back then. It was survival. If you were a police officer on a night shift, your food options were not great. You could 1, pack food, number 2, pray that a diner is opened, or number 3, get donuts. Because during that time, donut shops were the only thing that was open late. And police officers flocked to these donut shops because they were cheap, quick, filling, and also the shop offered the police officer a place to sit, relax for a little bit, and also discounts. Some shops even gave police officers free donuts. Donuts became such a popular choice, that's why you see all over TV, police officers are always related to donuts. Oh, now I'm craving donuts. Why is the $ an S and not a D? Well, you see, it started way back in the 16 and 1700s. And before America had dollar, they used the Spanish peso all the time. So this is where it gets interesting. Instead of writing Spanish peso in their accounting books, merchants used a shortcut. They wrote an S for Spanish and P for peso. Then as time went on, the P just became a straight line. And that shortcut slowly turned into the $ we know today. Here's the twist though. By the time the US started minting their own coins, the coins that they had didn't even have a $ on them. This symbol was only used in accounting books and documents. Now don't let me fool you, because there are other theories as to why the $ looks like this. However, this is the most widely supported theory. Did you know a single cloud can weigh over 1 million pounds? Don't believe me? Well, see, a cumulus cloud is usually 1 kilometer wide, and in just one has 1.1 million pounds of water. That is about the weight of a B747 jumbo jet. Whoa! And yes, thunderstorm clouds even heavier. So if they're that heavy, why aren't they just falling down on us? It's pretty simple. Clouds are made up of millions of tiny little water droplets, and they fall super slowly. Add in our rising air currents, it acts like an elevator that keeps the cloud afloat. And over time, these droplets get heavier and heavier, and that's when it starts to rain. Now, I could explain more, but it might just fly over your head. Get it? Fly over your head. Please subscribe. You should never mess with crows, because they have the ability to remember human faces, and if they don't like you, they'll never forget you. Not only will they torment you and attack you every time they see you, they'll also tell other crows nearby to do the same as well. They're pretty much gangsters. But it gets deeper than that, because even the children of the crows will carry the beef, making the hate last for generations. Now, there was also a study done on this, where scientists wore masks and they captured crows. For years and years after, anyone who wore the exact same mask that they wore got attacked. Even the crows that were never captured also joined in as well. And look, if you're nice to a crow as well, they will remember, and next time they see you, they'll bring a gift. Maybe. I'm about to ask you a question and you will automatically know the answer to it. Here we go. There are 2 photos here. Now, which one is called Kiki and which one is called Boba? Major guesses? Well, 90% of people guess Kiki as this sharp one here, and Boba or Booba as this blob thing here. And here's the weird part. You didn't know the answer to this question before, did you? Most people still pick the same things. Go show this video to your parents, your friends. They'll most likely answer the way you answered. Now, why do we resort to automatically knowing the names? It might be because of how we link sounds to objects and things that we feel. For example, if you say Boba, your mouth naturally makes a round, soft shape. But Kiki sounds sharper and quicker movements. So your brain might be using those tiny differences to match sounds with shapes. And people kept matching the same object and name together over and over and over again. And even babies did the same thing as well. So yeah, what about me? Do you guys think I'm more of a Boba or a Kiki? Did you know that cats and tigers are basically the same animal? They share about 95% of the exact same DNA, and it doesn't stop there. Cats and tigers also hunt the exact same ways, with a slow stalk, eyes locked, and a sudden explosive pounce. They're both exactly the same. Have you ever seen a cat do one of those butt wiggles when they're about to jump? Now, cats, when they're about to pounce, do this butt wiggle. Tigers also do the exact same thing when they're about to hunt or prey. Now, it gets even deeper. They're so alike that even when you see your cat playing with a toy, it's not really playing. It's practicing killing. Now, the reason why I'm saying all this is because if a cat was the size of a tiger, they wouldn't hesitate to eat their owners. But it doesn't take away how cute they are. I still love cats.
Ostrich, eyes about the size of a billiard ball. They blink about once a minute. An ostrich intestines are 46 feet or 14 meters long. Have a fabulous day.
Did you know that every time you hiccup, your body is actually glitching? See, your diaphragm, just right underneath your lungs, is having a spasm. It tries to inhale, but your vocal cords slam shut, which causes the sound, and this happens when this muscle gets irritated. Usually it's from eating too fast or a sudden temperature change, or you're just too excited. So your body jolts and then your diaphragm loses its cool. So how do you stop hiccups? Scientists say there's no official way to stop, but you can try to reset your diaphragm by holding your breath, which increases CO2, or drinking cold water could shock your vagus nerve back into rhythm. But it's not 100% guaranteed. Here's what most people don't know though. Why do we hiccup? Some scientists think that hiccups came from all the way back before we even evolved into humans. I'm talking when we were tadpoles, but they don't know why. And also another theory is when we were babies, we were practicing how to breathe in the womb, which caused this hit. But yeah. Ah, damn it! Did you know Australia is home to some of the deadliest animals in the world? Like the platypus, if you annoy them enough, they're dangerous to humans. I'll explain why a little bit later. But the reason why Australian animals are so deadly is partly because of isolation. We're pretty much alone. Australia has been separated from other continents for millions of years. So the animals here were able to evolve freely. Like take the inland taipan snake for example. It developed a extremely potent venom. Actually, it's the world's most venomous snake. Or the male platypus literally developed its venom to fight other males in competitions for women. Now you might think a kangaroo is cute, and they are, but this is an alpha male chasing us right now. I shouldn't be writing this. And they're pretty territorial. It's on site if you step near their territory and annoy them. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. Animals here aren't actually that scary. Most of the creepy snakes, spiders, koalas, kangaroos, they're not aggressive to people. And we don't usually run into them much. But if you're annoying, then yeah, be careful. Did you know roaches are becoming invincible? Scientists have discovered that German roaches are developing resistance to multiple insecticides. Now see, if you have a roach infestation in your house and you call an exterminator to help you, they usually switch between different chemicals for the roaches because one chemical isn't always effective. And now over time, the chemicals just aren't working anymore. And that's not even the worst part. These roaches get resistance to chemicals and then they pass it on to their offspring. So their kids are being born resistant to chemicals they have never been exposed to. Now a female roach can produce 100 eggs every few weeks. So the new evolved roaches are multiplying fast. So yeah, roaches are leveling up and they're almost at max level. What if the moon suddenly disappeared? Well, the first thing that will be affected is our oceans. See, the moon controls most of Earth's tides. Our tides would just drop to 1/3 of their size. And this is bad because entire coastal ecosystems depend on the tides to survive. So crabs, starfishes, and a lot of other coastal animals would be in trouble. And it gets worse. Some places on Earth will be much hotter because of the tides. And others will become much colder. Animals will eventually get confused because they use the moonlight to hunt. But are you ready for the scariest part? Earth itself would change forever. Now see, the moon helps stabilize Earth's tilt. Without it, we're gonna start wobbling all over the place, making seasons extreme or inconsistent. Now, isn't all of that out of this world? Get it? Because the moon's out of the world. This man woke up and he suddenly found himself in the middle of the ocean, and this is a true story. The night before, James was on a cruise ship with his family, and on the very first night they had so much fun, drank a lot, and James blacked out. And suddenly the next morning he woke up, he was in the middle of nowhere. And this is when he realized he fell overboard. And that's not even the worst of it. Drowning was his biggest fear. So he had to keep swimming just to stay afloat. Hours and hours passed and he was still stranded. Nothing in sight, just water. He was stung by a jellyfish, and at one point something with a fin brushed against his leg as well. But that didn't stop him. He kept swimming and trying to survive. Back on the cruise ship, his sister realized he was missing, and so the Coast Guard launched a massive search. And after nearly 18 hours in the water, someone finally saw James. He was standing out there screaming for help, waving his boxes, and thankfully he survived. And that's why it's so important to learn how to swim. That's right, I'm looking at you. Why does a soccer ball look like this?
Hey, that's handball, you dumb idiot!
Well, it was actually for you, the viewer. See, back in the day, this was what a soccer ball used to look like. They used plain brown leather, and honestly, they looked more like giant coconuts. And these brown soccer balls, oh, that was coconut. They didn't appear very well on national television. Since TVs back in the days were black and white, it was hard to track the ball. But in 1970 World Cup, Adidas introduced a new ball called the Telstar. And this had black pentagons and white hexagons, so that the ball would stand out better in black and white television. And that design pretty much went famous all over the world. So if we never had televisions, we would have never had these soccer balls. Probably.